hung up in the wind a little bit. Here's Worthy, makes the first man miss. Straight ahead past the 40. Kicker to beat. There he goes. Worthy making a house call on a punt return. Xavier Worthy with a 75-yard return for a touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Rattler on 3rd and 8. Herman brings pressure, hit as he throws. Jump ball! What a catch! Xavier Legette. He is him.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
As this is Sione Vaki on the direct snap, and Vaki around the outside. There he goes down the sideline. Sione Vaki, touchdown Utah.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Slovis under pressure, ducks away, sends it downfield. It's in the hands of Roberts, and he's loose. Chase Roberts being chased, but nobody's going to catch him. Touchdown, Cougars.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Missouri still trying to get set from the end zone. Cook throws one. It's intercepted. House call for Major Burns. And LSU is going to escape Columbia with a win.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Coach Sonny Dykes looking for answers to DJ Giddens. No response here. Giddens to the house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
There was a wow moment today in pro sports, really in sports general, with Jontay Porter of Toronto getting banned for life by the NBA for violating the league's gaming rules. We'll get to some of the details in a moment. The transfer portal continues to tick away. TCU today with a big loss on the offensive line. We'll get to that. Also, how the Sanders brothers are trying to get the portal lit up at Colorado and Boulder. And one of the names we talked yesterday, McLean, Carmani McLean, explaining a little bit of why he left or is leaving Boulder. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for your time today. And Jack McKenzie running the mothership. Jontay Porter, he's gone. He is not coming back. Here's something I saw someone respond to this. He played 11 games in his NBA career prior to this year. Most of what he did was grind through the G League to get back into the league or get into the league, and yet he is done. And it looks like he not only bet on the Raptors, but he bet on the Raptors to lose, and I think in those bets he lost.
Well, he made a bet on himself to underperform and then told the coaches that once he already hit that under, that he had a stomach bug and had to come out of the game, which is, not something even the coaches are going to be like, you don't have a stomach bug. I dare you to, keep going. Like, it's like, well, I don't want that to happen. So he came out of the game. This is a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is that, yes, these things are more readily available. Sports betting is legal, across the country in a lot of states now. But the good news is that this happened so fast and people figure it out because there are safeguards in place that, caught it. And he got caught and now he's banned for life. So I think that's the good news of it. The bad news is that there's still, again, a lot of stuff to be worked out with the proliferation of sports betting.
Yeah, I mean, we can only expect to see more stories like this, I think. I mean, unless, everybody sees this and is just so alarmed by the repercussions that they determine that it's not worth the risk. But when you're talking about millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars and hundreds of, not thousands of people that are all probably trying to get that inside track to go and then therefore make millions of dollars and promising you a batch of that dough if you can help them out, we are likely to see a recurring story like this. How recurring, I think, remains to be seen. But, yeah, this is obviously historic news in American sports. I mean, he's not the first guy to get popped for gambling, not the first guy to be banned. But when's the last time it happened? Do you guys know? Do you guys have any? I mean, was it Pete Rose? I don't know. I don't know.
I think there might have been another NBA, and I can't. But
Timmy Donaghy, but he was a referee.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Right.
True,
So
yeah.
I asked that out of the blue because I don't know. It just kind of popped into my head.
Ridley in the NFL, Calvin Ridley, right?
But he wasn't banned for life.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
you're
banned
right.
for life, where you're not allowed to ever play again. That's what the question I'm asking is, because it just popped into my head, and I didn't know, maybe you guys knew that off the cuff. So yeah, this is historic from that standpoint, and a big warning shot. So whoever the next pro athlete is in America that gets popped for something, if that happens, they can't say they weren't warned, because the Porter story is a big warning. But yeah, not all that surprising. Just not really well done on his part when you look into it. But as Paul said, the safeguards in place, the sports books saw some funny business going on, relayed that to the proper authorities, and they launched their investigation and came to these conclusions. But yeah, you read into the details of it, and was it worth it? I mean, was it worth it in the long run? I don't know. Probably not, it looks like. But, yeah, this is definitely interesting news. And this is the era that we live in now. I grew up in a no gambling whatsoever era. I know that y'all did as well. And now there's going to be lots and lots and lots of people who grow up where this is all they know is that gambling's involved. And DraftKings is going to be like one of their day one memories is seeing that commercial, the same way I maybe saw a Michelin commercial when I was younger, you know?
Yep.
So this is the start, I think, in some ways, of the new era and the policing of it and what that's all going to look like.
Yeah, the names that you think about in pro athletes, and I did kind of get a little bit of a glimpse that you think about Pete Rose, Lance Armstrong is one, Tanya Harding for a bizarre reason.
That wasn't gambling.
Yeah, but banned for life, yeah. And Shoeless Joe Jackson was another name that was a huge part of when I grew up reading that story. And yeah, but there aren't a lot when it comes to football, basketball, baseball, and even hockey.
Well, yeah, Tanya Harding was not gambling. Lance Armstrong was not gambling. So, yeah, Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose, the whole Black Sox scandal. And then, obviously, we know all too well about Pete Rose and his story. And, he's still fighting to try to get into the Hall of Fame, despite the fact that they've let it be known time and time again that's not happening. So it's not a long list. But now with the proliferation
most of them, the Olympic athletes and stuff like that.
Yeah, with the proliferation of gambling, though, in this country, especially sports gambling in particular, this new Wild West that everybody's trying to get a piece of, I think that we'll probably see some more. Hopefully not too much, but yeah, there is a historic moment going on here with this Porter news.
Chris Vanini earlier today from theathletic.com, he asked this question on a Twitter feed. You had the Alabama baseball coach's friend, but that was gambling.
And that was moronic. That was just so dumb.
Well, most of this is too. Are sports betting scandals being caught because of great protections, or are we watching or only catching the people being stupid about it?
Well, that's a very good question to ask. And Craig just said, yeah, the guys are being stupid. Like Keyshawn Butte was being stupid about it. Calvin Ridley, I don't think he even really thought about what he was doing at all. When
sounded like a young kid with a lot of money who was just throwing some bets out there. Yeah,
didn't even consider what was going on. And then somebody like Jontay Porter, bro, you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get caught.
Why is there suddenly a bunch of weird bets on Jontay Porter's scoring total?
Yeah. Who would even know how Jontay Porter is feeling? His team probably doesn't even care that much,
right?
Considering he's not that important a player to the whole, plan of the Raptors. So yeah, there are things to be concerned about, but I do think that it's good that safeguards are in place. And also, Lo, when you consider the people who are going to go the lowest to get to do these things, they don't care what rules are about anything.
No.
Like if you are going to, like, you can put all the rules in place for whatever to try to prevent things. That's where I think sometimes we get confused with laws and rules. Look, laws are put in place obviously to try and prevent things. But if you have people that are dead set on doing a thing, you're not going to prevent it, but the law helps you punish them for doing said thing.
Yeah, when they're caught. Okay, here's the note in the USA Today. Porter is just the second NBA player since 2000 to be banned from the league. The other was O.J. Mayo in 2016, again, not gambling. And Roy Tarpley was banned for life because he couldn't stay clean, and that was in 1995.
Yeah, but O.J. Mayo, as it says, that was a 2-year ban. That was not a for-life ban. So really the only one was Tarpley, and that was drugs, right?
Yep.
That was just straight-up drug issues.
He kept. That's back when there was zero tolerance on it. Now, here's another note about Porter and how much money he made. In 2019 and 20, just under $200,000. And that was because of COVID affected the overall number. Then made $1.9 million the next year with the Grizzlies, $300,000 in 21-22. And then his salary, two-way contract for this year, was in the neighborhood of about $400,000+ and made just under $3 million in his career. And here he is looking for a little extra on the side.
Look, I would kill to have that be my annual salary. Like everybody in this room would be just fine making that kind of money, but that's like nothing NBA money. I can almost kind of see why he's betting.
Minimum is like $1 million.
I can almost see why he's betting because that's like that has to be amongst the lowest, I think, contracts in the NBA or money totals, because it feels like some of them backup centers just have to get out of bed to make $500,000, on some of these contracts you see. That's
don't fly private,
right? Yeah, I mean, the NBA contracts are, at least the side that we typically talk about, are pretty luxurious and whatnot. So yeah, that's nothing money in the NBA.
The minimum salary for someone who makes the season at the start is $1.1 million. This is the first time the minimum salary has exceeded the $1 million mark. $1 million a year minimum for anybody who signs a contract, a one-year deal, or gets on the team as the season progresses.
Well, and he's also a guy who wasn't, a mainstay. He was with the Grizzlies for a couple ticks and then, gone, and then back in the NBA this past seasons and, 23-24. And so that was, he's a guy who's, I don't even think he's played. Maybe he's played half a real NBA season in total, so that's why he would be making such low money. But yeah, it was a two-way, what they call a two-way contract. I'm saying like the amount of games he's played in the NBA itself is like it's not even a full season over 3 or 4 years. So that's why the money total is so low. But it's still just shocking to hear an NBA guy with that little amount of money. So you can see where, especially in that league, where, like I said, you can wake up and make $500,000. It seems like sometimes. You can see why he's trying to squeeze more out of that. But, yeah, he just cost himself so much more than the few $100,000 he at least had coming his way.
Max Olson will join us tomorrow on his first week watching and covering, as he does so well, the transfer portal. A couple of nuggets from his article today that I'm going to read to you. By the end of the day yesterday, more than 200 players had entered the portal to kick off the 14-day period for underclassmen. 116 from Group of 5, just over 100 from Power 5. All of the FBS schools that led the way as far as from yesterday, and I know some others have entered it again today. Georgia State had 13 players enter the portal. Arkansas State, Colorado, Bowling Green, Illinois, and Old Dominion were the ones that lost the most in the first 24 hours of the portal. Now have surpassed 2,100 FBS scholarship transfers in the current portal that began August the 1st, a 25% increase in the total from last year that was on April the 16th. So it continues, even though it seems like it's been more of a slow trickle, it's out there. That faucet has been turned on.
Well, most of the players you've never heard of.
And by the way, you have till April 30th to keep on entering.
I mean, again, most of the players, unless you're like a recruiting expert, you've never heard of these guys. And even then, you might not have heard of some of them. The majority of those guys in the portal, you're not going to hear about, even when they go to another place, unless you specifically follow that place. But there are some interesting names. I think that's the biggest thing. It's a lot like, look, it's exactly like free agency in a lot of sports. Like how many times you're like, just talking about the NBA, you're like, oh, okay, well, this big free agent, Paul George, went to the Clippers. Oh, well, that's really interesting. And then there's 10 other guys you're like, oh, is that guy in the league?
Or you don't even know they left.
I remember him from Belmont.
Yeah, there's a lot of it where I feel like the guys get in the reactions. I'm like, what do I not? Oh, this guy's a former 4-star recruit who hasn't done anything in 2 years. And that's why he's a big deal, because you think that maybe somebody will get him and then squeeze that 4-star talent out, but he hasn't done something, at in the last year or two. So there is some of that, and you kind of have to refresh in your brain on the recruiting rankings when they were coming out, and that can make guys more attractive or more well-known. But, yeah, there hasn't been a lot of big cannonball-like splashes, more just ripples for the most part. But I think there's one you're about to touch on that was, not a tsunami wave, but it is significant.
Well, I asked a few people about this, including those who covered TCU. This one hurt. Dominic Williams entered the transfer portal today. He was a true freshman All-American as a freshman, of course, 2022. Last year, All Big 12, 2023. There he is with a chokehold. And Chris Hummer had this, among others. Our buddy Jeremy Clark, who covers TCU. Dominic Williams, a defensive lineman, has entered the portal, and I saw many of the responses. Man, this one is going to hurt.
Yeah, that one stings at TCU. He's a stalwart in the middle of that defensive line for them. Takes up, 6'2", 320, big dude. And now probably, as far as his position goes and his accomplishments, outside of a couple other guys, becomes one of the, I think he's probably a top 5 pursued player as of right now, which, again, if you're Dominic Williams and you see that defensive tackle is the position that everybody needs, if you took the survey and called around, especially to the teams that are national championship contenders, you call up Georgia, like, what's your biggest need? Defensive tackle. You call up LSU, what's your biggest need? Well, anything on defense but defensive tackle. All of them want defensive tackles. Ole Miss is really the only one who significantly addressed it by getting Walter Nolan, and the rest of,
But he can't play all the time.
No, exactly. So, again, if you put this guy next to somebody who's also good, like there's a lot of teams and ones that are going to be contenders that still need this position.
Well, when we did the biggest storylines of the transfer portal yesterday, we mentioned one of the position of the biggest need for anybody is not quarterback, because most of those have been filled, is at the defensive line position, and Williams he'll be coveted, if not already contacted by many.
Yeah, I saw Oklahoma, I think, might be interested in him. A&M. I don't know about Texas, but I feel like I might have seen something in passing, and maybe that's just because I saw Oklahoma and A&M, and I'm just connecting them with that as well. But, just start there, and that means you're going to have probably pretty lucrative offers coming your way when those are your kind of starting point schools, and not to mention whoever else throws their hat into the ring. I think just for starters, it's a huge blow for TCU. I don't know how expected it was, although apparently there was some at least a couple of tweets I saw that indicated this might have been sort of, I guess, previewed last fall, of like maybe there were some thoughts that he was already looking around. I don't know that to be sure. It was just a couple of notes that I had seen. But regardless, how prepared for it they were or not, this is a heavy blow, literally and figuratively for them. Defensive linemen, defensive tackles in particular, big dudes like that that can be disruptive and eat up a lot of ground. They don't grow on trees, and they are the most coveted type of player in all of, college football, to be certain. This is a guy who's going to go make, I imagine, a good amount of money. He's going to have a lot of teams coming after him, and TCU's going to have a whale of a time trying to now replace him. Now, if they had a little bit of forewarning, then maybe they were able to kind of put some plans in motion, but you can't just go out and grab a guy like this. No. And without having to go pay the toll for it. So, yeah, this is significant news for the Frogs in a negative way, and it will be a significant addition for whatever team ends up picking up Dominic Williams. But this is the era we live in now, and this is what's kind of hard as a fan is those who probably grew to love him and were like, man, imagine how good he's going to be, year 3. If he gets to year 4, now he's not even on your team suddenly. So that stinks, but it's part of the deal. You live, you adjust, and looking forward to seeing where he lands, but that does, deliver a bit of a body blow to Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs.
We'll have Sam Kahn coming up at 3:30. His thoughts on some of the news from today. So
I would like to see on the transfer rankings, and I don't know, I haven't been able to look around, but I do feel like we have as much like tools now at our disposal as possible when it comes to like rankings and things like that. But probably need to separate the guys who have already like committed in the last couple months from like this new group, because I don't think Dominic Williams is going to be a top-ranked player based on all of the guys that have transferred so far, because there's like 50 quarterbacks, you know. But
for the spring portal, though.
For the spring portal, I would imagine he's got to be one of the top guys on the top of the list. But when you take into account the totality of the entire 2 waves so far, I don't think he's up there near the top. But in the spring, he's definitely one of the biggest players available now.
A couple of notes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But On3 has a database that you can put best available on there, and I don't think they have put him on there for defensive tackle just yet, because again, it was just today. So
right,
I'm
sure.
Happened. Yeah, I'm sure his profile will pop up on there pretty soon.
But if you go to the rankings, it's like Walter.
Go ahead.
I mean, we want to talk about something we want to talk about. Yeah. Walter Nolan's on the top of the list, so he's, a guy who's already been enrolled, and so he's still at the top of the rankings. So, we'll see, I'm sure, a refreshed rankings list when it all settles down. But, he'll be up there near the top.
Well, again, that's why you need to split them. For what happened right after December or in that first window compared to what we have now with this second window that runs through. And there will be a bunch that flood the gates, you would think, after the spring games coming up this weekend. Colorado. Let's get to them. They've lost some players. They'll gain a bunch. That's what they've done with Dion. But former Colorado star recruit, 5-star recruit Carmani McLean, telling Blue Bloods Bias that on a scale of 1 to 10, it was an 11. It ain't on my end. It's on their end, confirming that he was entering the transfer portal. That could be sour grapes. That could be he wasn't going to play. That could be he didn't like the way Dion called him out. And that could be because he's miserable. I don't know, but that was interesting. Here's another thing that was interesting that came down yesterday. Shiloh Sanders, on his Instagram account, put up a note. Defense transfers DM me. Offensive transfers DM Shedeur.
And then at the bottom, this not last chance you.
And then also the comment, typically programs have scouting departments to identify talent and to reach out to prospective players for recruitment. Not normally. Now, players can get on there and say, hey, follow me, or I'm bringing people with you. But this was interesting that last night, Shiloh and Shedeur looking for more talent to flood the Colorado roster.
Good luck to them in doing that. Again, like no offense to Shiloh and Shedeur, but they probably don't know as much as, the guys they have on staff that are talent evaluators.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose they do know what their dad's looking for and what they're looking for this season. I don't know how that plays long term. I don't know how long term the Sanders are going to be in Boulder, Colorado. However, I mean, the players, the brothers, are going to be gone in a year, less than a year, and Dion, we will see how the course of his career in Boulder goes. We know he's at least going to be around for this upcoming season, but. Yeah, I don't think that's a good look. I mean, I think on the one hand, you could probably spin that if you're a Buffs fan and say, look at the players. It's a player-led team. They're taking control, and the whole this is not last chance you comment. They're staying away from the riffraff or not letting players who think that this is going to be like, a Netflix show that they're joining up to be a part of, or this is going to be some free and easy ride. I think there is good messaging in that this isn't just – some Netflix show. This isn't some gimmick. This is like football, and we're looking for real, dogs, for lack of a better term, because that's how Dion would probably phrase it. But at the same time, that's the positive spin on it. The other side of it would be Dion's kids are basically now the personnel guys for Colorado football.
Yeah.
Or
that's alarming.
Center. Yeah.
That's not good, I don't think.
Traffic cops, I guess, for the comes to the portal for what the Buffaloes are trying to figure out.
How many times have you seen this happens in the NFL a lot. Like, we got to get this wide receiver in here because he's a stud and he can play. Like, it's usually other wide receivers like, come and play with me. And that's all well and good. But usually, like, how many people want Odell Beckham Jr. because they're like, Odell Beckham Jr. was awesome. And like, well, 2 ACL tears and Achilles tear, he's not really junior anything anymore. Like he's kind of past that. So if you ask players who they want, players are going to say, like, give me the big names. I want to be part of this, especially the flashier guys. Sometimes, again, it's not about flash, which I know is the Sanders whole vibe as a family, but you do need Army ants in there with you.
Yeah, you got to have a few of those that aren't the millionaires, and even NFL rosters need that. You can't have an entire team of all pros. I saw where an Arizona defensive lineman, their linebackers coach now is at Texas. He's in the portal. He's visiting Texas, like it maybe even in Austin right now. Here's a couple of other notes about the portal, one including Ja'Cory Brown, a very talented, highly ranked quarterback who has entered the portal from Miami. Now, that's one story. The other story is this. Paul, who is Uncle Luke Real?
Uncle Luke from
this is
the rapper?
Yes, that's who it is.
Yeah.
He gets on there and he starts calling out Shannon Dawson, Miami's staff. You're the offensive coordinator. This is on your face. You better have a solid second-string quarterback and a starting quarterback for next year in that room. This is football town. We know football. Ray Charles could have saw that he was clearly the second-best quarterback on the team during the spring and also bowl game. Mr. Brown, may God be with you. Great. I will always be a fan of yours because you chose the university. Unfortunately, the university did not choose you.
Yeah, well, Uncle Luke has always been, like, he was Miami's NIL before there was NIL, for sure, for a lot of players. Ask Warren Sapp about Uncle Luke and his friendship. They were buddies back in the day. So, and moving on down the line, the 01 Miami team, Uncle Luke was there a lot. But Ja'Cory Brown could not break the starting lineup of quarterbacks that weren't really all that good. He did have a win against Georgia Tech. And look, Shannon Dawson is taking a ton of heat from the Miami fans, but that's because they haven't been that good on offense yet. They had that terrible loss to Georgia Tech last year. Look, they didn't score, big points against their rivals either. So, yeah, people are on him, but look, Ja'Cory Brown's not going to start this year for Miami. Cam Ward's going to start. They went out and got Reese Poffenbarger for a reason, because they wanted some protection against Ja'Cory Brown probably trying to go find a place where he could start, and that's going to be that. I don't know if Uncle Luke is right or not. We'll see. But Cam Ward's going to be the quarterback this year. And if Cam Ward's hurt, I'm sorry, but Ja'Cory Brown is not going to help them win to the level that Cam Ward was. That just not was going to happen.
Uncle Luke's been a mainstay around Miami for eternity now. Yeah. I mean, he's been around the program as long as I can remember, so he's a super fan is what he is, and I'm sure to some extent a booster or whatever. But, yeah, that's a too long didn't read in some ways there, the message that he had. He needs to be saying that to his head coach, but I guess that's the route that he's taken to get that message out there and also to rile up the public and the rest of the Canes fans. And mission accomplished, because I think a lot of them are feeling the same way. But this is that era. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, you go recruit a guy, but you bring in Cam Ward. What are you expecting? What's the young guy going to do? You sit there and wait another year when he could go out and probably get a new NIL deal and, have a fresh starting point. So the days of having the, big time, just about ready to boil and then move on after a year quarterback, and then having the young player waiting in the wings and all those types of things, it's going to be commonplace at some spots. Like Texas can do it because they've got Sark and they've got big money and they've got a desirable landing spot in a situation right now where, it's working out okay, Ewers to Arch Manning, but that's not going to be the case at every place. And especially with how, the transfer portal is crazy, but it's particularly crazy for quarterbacks. So, I think Miami fans have every right to be a little upset, but I think this is just part of what you're getting nowadays with college football. Is it's going to be hard to hang on to, quarterbacks in particular, but young players who have a good amount of talent. So he will be an interesting one to watch.
I want to do one more. This is news from this afternoon that was already discussed, already said it was going to be passed, but today NCAA, the council changes transfer rules, permits immediate eligibility for transfers who are academically eligible, in good standing at a previous school, and meet progress towards a degree requirements at new school. Decision not final until they meet sometime at the end of the day on Thursday, ratified by Division I board on Monday. It must be. But this was something we knew was coming. This is yet another, also because of the injunctions. And so now you could transfer. You still cannot transfer within the same season. In case there is concerns, like you're at Alabama, you want to transfer, you're going to play at Mississippi State in 3 or 4 weeks in the same semester. You cannot do that.
Well, and you also can't go SEC to SEC this window, which has been a big talking point, and I'm sure Greg Sankey will field a lot of questions about that as time moves on. But we talked about a situation like that yesterday. I mentioned the head coach had left Alabama, so we were talking about who was it, Isaiah Bond, but also came to learn, because I want clarity of my own, make sure know what we're talking about. But I think in that first window, it's okay to transfer SEC to SEC. It's this spring window where it's disallowed. So that's why Isaiah Bond ×2 was freely available. But yeah, this transfer rule has been coming down the pipeline. We knew that, and I don't think it's good for the game. I don't. I think it's not great to have this level of player movement. Some freedom of movement is great. You don't want to restrict them and make it, you got to sit out a year. I think that is too archaic, and that doesn't belong in today's game either. But just keep your head above water, which is basically impossible not to do unless you have a learning disability. In college, you have so much help, and you have so many people trying to make sure that you stay eligible. Think about how many times you've seen your team, and you know they're not all Harvard grads, and they all magically stay eligible all year long when they need to, right? And so it's kind of hard to see a situation where somebody's not going to be academically eligible to transfer. So everybody would be able to freely move, and I just don't think that's great. Now, it might be great for if you want to cite specific examples, like player A came from a rough background and he's going to make several $100,000 by bouncing around to 3 schools in 4 years, okay? That could be life-changing. He might start a business and become a millionaire for all we know. But that's going to be few and far between.
Right.
Most of the others are just going to be bouncing from allegiance to allegiance, and I think it sucks. I think, I've seen a lot of, if you don't like it, well, then don't watch. Well, a lot of people aren't going to probably. And if you don't like it, then you better get used to it. And we'll get used to it. Doesn't mean we have to like it, though. Right. And I just don't like the kind of mercenary ball that's going on right now, even if it has had shades of that in the past.
This is unlimited transfer.
Yeah.
This is like transfer as many times as you want.
Play at 5 schools in 5 years if you want to.
Yeah. And Gina Bardal, our guest yesterday, did a story about those who have been multiple transfers, and we appreciate her time on the show yesterday.
I'll just tell you this. My freshman year at Florida State, sophomore year, I took a meteorology class. And I thought, this will be an interesting science to take. I sat down, and I was amongst the 1999 national championship team. And then I was like, this is a class where they show you pictures of clouds and rain and tell, what is this?
It sounds like my buddy's bowling class at Texas Tech that he legitimately.
There will be a full solar eclipse in 25 years. All right, when we come back, Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, we'll have SMU football coach Rhett Lashlee today in the 4 o'clock hour. Also, Greg Wrubell on BYU's new basketball coach. He'll join us in that same hour. Also, former Baylor star Alfred Anderson, Lunch with a Legend, coming up tomorrow in Waco. We'll check in with him. He was also a local high school legend. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty and his staff can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. How? 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. That could be your energy. That could be your focus. It could be your sleep habits. And yes, it could be your sex drive and ED. You might have any of those, symptoms, maybe more than one. And if you do, it could be low testosterone. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have that in their blood because things change as you get a little bit older. Not everybody, but enough. So Dr. Petty will set you up to get your blood work. He'll take care of that for you. He'll get the results, contact you, and discuss it with you. And he has an option if you want to be able to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, where the thrill of the drive meets unbeatable savings. Feel the adrenaline as you conquer the road in a 2023 Dodge Durango RT, now with a jaw-dropping $12,500 off. Or unleash the power of the 2023 Dodge Charger Challenger RT, now available with a remarkable $11,000 off. Feel the rush of pure performance and style as you dominate the urban jungle. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of Dodge Power Shot Days. Hurry in and claim these incredible savings before they're gone. Come by and let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, joins us, covers college football, has been to Baylor, been to TCU, and also Houston in the last couple of weeks. We'll have write-ups on them. Joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Sam, thank you very much. How would you describe at least the first 24 hours or so of this early portion of the spring transfer window?
I think it's manageable more so than the winter window. And I'm not really surprised by that because we are now in a place where we've had these windows for a little bit. We've had portal activity and the unlimited transfer rule obviously is known. I mean, I feel like even though you weren't supposed to have unlimited transfers, I feel like a lot of people were transferring multiple times already before this and getting waivers and such. So I feel like we've been at this a few years now, even though some of this is still evolving and new. I think there's enough, at least at the Power 5 level or Power 4 level, I should say, there's enough programs that have a grasp of this now. And with the collectives and with all the stuff that goes into it with NIL, I think people understand how this works now. And so I saw a lot of commentary yesterday about how there wasn't a lot of fireworks, but I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting a lot of fireworks because I think people understand how this works now. The collectives have settled a little bit. The coaching staff, the recruiting staff, the player personnel and scouting departments, head coaches, they all understand how this works, and the players do too. And I think there is a little bit of a settling, and I think we will see this as the years go by. I don't think it's going to look like it did the first 2 years of the one-time transfer rule in the portal, because we're all getting more used to the effects of it.
Yeah, the big news from today, Sam, would especially in this neck of the woods, would be Dominic Williams from TCU planning to enter the portal, and his is probably opportunistic on the fact that everybody needs defensive tackles right now. But how huge a loss is this for the Horned Frogs?
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, the guy started every game in the last 2 seasons, including every game of that 2022 team that went to the national championship game. And that though guys like him, they don't just sprout up out of nowhere. You can't just go get another Dominic Williams, especially at a Big 12 school. Maybe if you're Alabama or Georgia, maybe you have a better chance of getting another one of those guys. But at a TCU, it is harder to get those guys. So it is an impact loss for them. It is a little surprising to me. I was over there, just a few days ago, and I had not heard any rumblings of this coming. So this is going to be a little bit of a hole in new defense coordinator Andy Avalos' defense, and they're going to have to compensate for it.
How's TCU feeling heading into year 3 of Sonny Dykes? Since you mentioned that you just were around the program, really a tale of high in year 1 and a low in year 2. Where do they kind of find themselves? Right in the middle?
Yeah, I think there definitely was a wake-up call in 2023. And I got the sense that I think maybe they were, and Sonny Dykes I think would admit this, there was a little bit too much assumption that culture would carry over from 22 to 23. And that just because you went and got a bunch of talented players in the portal and you brought some guys back, that, hey, it's all just going to magically happen again. And that approach combined with, some staff changes and things like that, it really, I think, made a difficult go at it in 23. And also a lot of close games. A lot of things went right for them in 22. They had a lot of one possession wins, games that came down to the wire, or games that they had to come back to win that they ended up pulling out. Well, last year they had 4 losses by 1 score. And so some of those games went the other way. And I think a regression was expected, but to regress to the point to where they were 5-7, I think was a shock to a lot of them. But I think what I see now is an acknowledgement that, hey, we do need to be better about fostering a culture and understanding that as these rosters are more transient, players come in and out, that we cannot just assume that this is going to take hold. And players too can't assume that, hey, just because we got to the championship game last year, it means we're going to automatically be good without doing all the same things that team did the year before. I think that realization is there. Now, how good will they be? Gosh, it's anybody's guess. I think they'll be a better team, but I don't know that I'd be ready to say that they're going to be a 10-win team. I will say that the talent on the roster overall, as I watch them move around, looks pretty good.
We had Jared Wiley, who will be drafted, you would think, at some point late next week on the show at Big 12, the Pro Day. He actually said that he felt that they had just as much talent, but they had terrible upperclassmen leadership, and he also pointed at himself. Dykes make any comments about that, or anyone else?
I think there is definitely a void of leadership. I definitely heard that. And that didn't surprise me, though, because when you lose Max Duggan, who was a multi-year starter, Quentin Johnson, who was a multi-year starter, Kendre Miller, Steve Avila, I mean, you go down the list, the D. Winters, Dylan Norton. There were so many guys that were multiple-year starters who had been together. Travius Hodges-Tomlinson's another.
Yep.
It is just – those are what I call heart and soul guys on a team. And I don't care who you are. When you lose that volume of guys from one roster, it is damn near impossible to replace. Like, I look at a team like Texas, like, did they lose some guys? Yes, they're losing Jalen Ford, and they're losing Jatavian Sanders, and they're losing Jordan Whittington, but they still do have a lot of key guys from that team last year coming back that's going to help them. TCU lost so much of that production, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that, combined with some of the new faces that they brought in that didn't really understand what it took and the work and the effort and the leadership that existed before, I think it just made for a little bit of a mess in 23 for them.
Sam Kahn is on with us from the athletic.com on college football, the portals opened, and much more.
Sam, A&M has lost several transfers so far here in the early period. They've lost a lot. Jacoby Matthews, obviously, another one of that 2022 class that did not pan out. And then a couple guys who had just transferred there from other places that aren't going to be there anymore. So I'm not sure how much that's a big deal to them. Could they actually be better next year and have much lower star ratings across the board from the guys on their roster?
Yeah, I do think they can be better. I think that's one thing that bringing Mike Elko in will do, and the staff that he has constructed, is that I think they're not going to be as up and down. And I thought under Jimbo Fisher, there was a lot of that where they just were, you could see the ceiling was so high, but then there were times where they would play at a level that was so far below their talent, and it just would boggle your mind. I don't think that's going to happen under Mike Elko. I think the floor and the consistency is going to be much higher for this program. And they still do have a lot of really good talent, even though they have lost a lot of guys from that 22 class. I look at the offense and I see Connor Wegman. I see a backfield loaded with 3 guys who were blue chip recruits. I see Noah Thomas, Moose Muhammad. They've got almost their entire offensive line back. On defense, they lost so many of those defensive linemen, but Shamar Stewart is still there. Shamar Turner is still there. Eni White, DJ Hicks, the 5-star who was a true freshman last year, he should step in and contribute. Torian York, a guy who was committed to Baylor and flipped late in the process, who turned out to be a star as a freshman last year. There is still really high in talent on this team. It may not just be as plentiful at the high end, but there's still a lot. And I thought in that winter portal window, from the time that Elko got the job to the time they got to February signing day, they did about as good of a job plugging all the holes with all these guys they got in the portal as anybody has done in the country, in my opinion. I thought they did a masterful job of finding guys. And sure, some of those guys are going to be gone. They went into spring with more than 85 scholarship guys. So there was going to be some attrition anyway coming out of spring just to get to the 85 number. But I think they're so much more organized, and I think the team is going to be built with much more thought, because I thought with Jimbo there, they got a little bit too much into star chasing, and regardless of position. I remember that 22 class that had 8 defensive linemen. Not to say that having 8 defensive linemen is bad, but I didn't think that sometimes they thought through how they constructed the roster, and I think that's going to be a lot different under this regime.
We are in the ultimate adapt or die moment, I feel like, in college football and college sports history. We still don't quite know, Sam, what the end of the road looks like just yet, and we probably got a little bit of a ways to go to get there. But there's a lot of change in the air. Some of it not everybody feels comfortable with, but again, you have to adapt to it. How do you feel about just basically, for lack of a better term, unlimited transfers?
I mean, I don't love it because it just is hard to maintain a team and maintain a culture when guys can come and go. But again, as long as you are not going to revenue share with the players directly, then it's hard to put restrictions on them. And obviously the courts have made that case over and over. And so I understand that. I would love to get to a place where we were not being able to do it in a semester. Like if you transferred in the winter window, then I would like it if you were just there for that 1 year, and then you could go afterwards. After 1 year in residence. I think a year in residence does a lot of good, but I also do understand, and we've been hypocritical about this for so long because coaches have been able to come and go. And,
right.
We've seen how many coaching moves did we see after February?
Oh,
and after December signing day. I mean, there's so many of those that happen. And the thing is if a coaching change, even a position coach, if that impacts your position, that can change your entire outlook as a player because you may not fit that coach's style, the way he coaches, the techniques that he uses. I remember talking to some of the UT defensive linemen after I think the Sarkisian staff got there. They had gone through 3 different D-line coaches and 3 different defensive coordinators in 3 years. And that means you learning 3 different ways. And that is not good for the players either. So it really is it's challenging. It's challenging for the staff. It's challenging, I think, for the players because I do think there is a value to spending a year in residence. But this is kind of where we are for right now.
All right, so you also visited Dave Aranda and Baylor, and probably the most unknown of what to expect after a couple of very disappointing years. And last year, they just were never really in it. What did you learn? Because we're all still trying to figure that out ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I watched them last week, I went over there last week and visited with them and watched them practice and all that. I get the sense that there's still a lot of energy. I still get the sense that there's a lot of belief. I don't see, negativity. I don't see any of that. And it's funny because I kind of got the same feeling last year when I went over there last spring. I thought I walked out of there thinking this might be a pretty good team, and of course I was way off on that, as I'm sure everybody else was, because nobody saw what 3-9 coming. But I do think the staff changes have been good. I like the addition of Jake Spavital. He's so experienced, and he's been doing this in this conference for a long time. Obviously, spent time at West Virginia. He spent time, I think, at Oklahoma State even. And so he is a good quarterback coach. I think he's a good coordinator. I think him working with this will fit Sawyer Robertson so much better from a schematic standpoint. Daquan Finn physically, you really like how he looks. Like he looks the part as a quarterback. So I'll be excited to see how he is fitting into this team. And then Dave having more of a hands-on approach on the defense is really fascinating to me because he has been mostly a CEO coach in the modern mold that you would expect. And now he's more hands-on with the defense. And he's, I know that's no secret. Everybody that's been following Baylor football knows that. But I think I'm really fascinated to see what it looks like. And can he turn that defense around in 1 year? Knowing his expertise and his background as a coordinator, yeah, I think he can. But the question is how do you balance with all the other things and demands that come with being a head coach? That's the key, because being a head coach in 2024 is no longer just about football. But if you want to do football, you've got to have other guys capable of picking up the load. And that's why they added Jake Spavital. That's why they added Gary Patterson. So Baylor's going to be one of the most fascinating experiments to me in college football this year. Yeah,
it's really interesting. It's like a bowl of gumbo. It's a lot of different ingredients thrown in. I don't know how good it's going to taste, like when all is said and done, but it'll be interesting to try out and see here. Did you happen to bump into Gary Patterson by any chance?
You saw him roving around the practice field, certainly. Just like I did, when he was at Texas, you would see him on the practice field, and he would be kind of just looking, kind of taking the big picture view. He's got a little piece of paper with some notes and a pen. He's jotting down notes throughout the practice. The same thing I saw him doing at Baylor. He's kind of taking notes and observing. It's not Gary Patterson that you expected to see at TCU when he was screaming his head off and losing his voice. Well, not that we had access to TCU practice, right. But everybody I know that's been to a TCU practice says that Gary would lose his voice every day because of how he hollers. That's not Gary anymore. Gary didn't do that at Texas, and Gary doesn't do that at Baylor. He is kind of taking the big picture view, taking his notes, and I'm sure him and Dave are visiting after, every day after practice and talking through that. And that's what one thing when he was at Texas, Steve Sarkisian mentioned that Gary was a very good sounding board. It was, hey, Sark, especially as an offensive coach, it was like, hey, I'm going to, this is what I'm doing or what I want to do. How would you attack this? And Gary's a student. He's been around teams for 2 decades, 3 decades. He knows what it looks like. And I'm sure there's little things that he probably notices, whether it's technique from players or what players are doing right or wrong, X's and O's, but also I'm sure little behaviors, things that he notices, because there's more hands-on that Dave Aranda is with the defense. Guess what? He can't be everywhere, and Gary's kind of an extra set of eyes. I think that will be a really big help to him.
Sam, how much of I don't want to say make or break. That's as much, but an interesting year for Joe McGuire and Texas Tech, 2024 could be, because they've shown positive growth, but they're not they haven't broken through yet.
Yeah, I think it's a really big year because there was so much enthusiasm around the hire, and Joey McGuire, obviously, as you guys know, a very excitable guy, easy to rally around because of his personality. And I think, really good, solid first year. Last year, a lot of the quarterback injuries, you wish they had been better. They didn't live up to the expectations that some of us put on them, and myself included. We probably jumped the gun a little bit, proclaiming how good they were going to be last season. Quarterback injuries played in that as well. But I think, in year 3, you've been recruiting at a high level. You've had a stable coaching staff. They haven't really lost much, either on the offensive or defensive staff. Yeah, I think it's time to take a big step forward. I think it's time to start being a real contender in this conference, especially now that Texas and Oklahoma are no longer there. This is a wide open conference. And not to say that Texas Tech deserves to be at the top, but the way they're building and all the ingredients you look at, funding, NIL, infrastructure, coaching staff stability, player recruiting at the high school level. They've worked the portal pretty well. All those ingredients are there. So I think it is time for it to start to add up to a jump and something really good for them and start making a move toward being a real conference title contender. So I agree with you. Not a make or break year, but if you don't see some positive progress, then you might start asking a few questions about what's going on.
Hey, man, we appreciate it, Sam. As always, good luck covering all this that never ends. The NFL went 12 months a year. Now college football's like almost hold my beer. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Good luck with all the other stuff you're writing.
Thanks so much, guys. Y'all take care.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com on TCU, Baylor. Also, he was down in Houston, but the transfer portal, many other stories, including A&M that Paul brought up, and in the case there with the Joey McGuire. We've got a lot of Tech fans, Katie Rader, Kim Coulter, among others. And it's been nice. They've been in the bowl game. They've won bowl games. But it still has to just be an itch to actually be legitimately at the end competing to play in the Big 12 championship game and win it, because that's missing. And that's still hard to imagine after all of these years.
Yeah, I don't think that you take for granted the fact that he's come in and won, 2 bowl games and won 8 games in back-to-back years. Yep. That's not nothing.
And closed well.
Yeah, that's not nothing.
So.
I mean, has had some nice wins. I mean, had to feel good to just destroy Baylor last year after the way that they destroyed you in the first go-round. And obviously that first year you had the shocking wins over Texas and Oklahoma, the way that those unfolded, the craziness of all of that. So they've had some big moments. But, yeah, I mean, now that the Longhorns and Sooners are no longer a part of the equation, everybody's on a bit more equal footing across the board. And it does feel like even though a TCU has jumped up or a Baylor has jumped up or an Oklahoma State have jumped up and played with the main spotlight a little bit, Texas Tech's never really done that. The closest they've come is 2008 when they were part of a 3-way tie, and that 3-way tie featured everybody beating one or the other, and this gridlock. But unfortunately for them, they had this grand moment of beating Texas thanks to this legendary play by Michael Crabtree and Graham Harrell, and then their other part of that was getting destroyed like I've rarely seen teams get destroyed in a big moment in Norman, Oklahoma on a Saturday night. I mean, it was that was the worst thing in the world for a Texas Tech fan to watch. It was incredible to watch as an Oklahoma fan, and launched them basically into the national championship game where they didn't take care of business.
By decimal points, yeah.
Yeah, but because Texas had an argument to be there as well, and they'll still claim that they should have been in that game, and there's an argument for that. But for Texas Tech, that's how much they've really knocked on the door, and that was a long time ago. So, yeah, I can see where, hey, 8 wins is cool. Winning a bowl game. The Texas Bowl is cool, but yeah, we want to see you now go win 10 and compete for the Big 12 title, and I think that's what Joey obviously wants. I think that's what the guys who join him on that staff want, obviously, and they seem to have some good pieces in place, but can they take it to another level? I think this is a year where you start to want to see that, and you should be able to start seeing the seeds of that if you haven't already.
From Katie Rader, and I don't see Kim. I got a story about Kim Coulter. We have to share it. You got to keep your quarterbacks healthy.
Yes,
and that's one of the things. So Kim Coulter in the chat room just told this story. Rhett Lashlee in 15 minutes. Kim drove 42 minutes to a doctor's appointment. 42 minutes to a doctor's appointment, only to have the doctor's receptionist look at him and say, "Hello, dumbass, your appointment is tomorrow."
Oh, wow.
You ever done that?
Yep.
Well, here's the best. Listen,
I don't know if I've done that or not. I might have just missed the appointment because I forgot about it.
The pitch, the sales pitch for Waco. I'll tell you, here's the sales pitch. Nothing else matters other than this, I'm going to tell you. If that happens to you, Smokey, if you showed up for a doctor's appointment tomorrow and they're like, no, it's next Thursday.
Right.
You're out 20 minutes.
Yeah, no.
That's it. That's it.
It used to be 17.
Yeah. It's gotten a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you're still only out 20 minutes.
No,
you're
right.
not out
It's not,
an hour and a half
well,
round trip. You're out 20 minutes.
I agree.
Like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yep.
All right, that's it. That is my sales pitch for Waco.
Yep.
And the thing is, if it works too well, then it's over. Then they ruined it. It used to be the sales pitch for Austin. Austin, Texas used to be like that.
When, 40 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, like that was their thing.
In the early to mid 80s.
No, the 80s were good.
Yeah, 40 years ago. So Austin used to be like that. I remember when I was a kid, I'd go visit my grandparents, and it felt like a big city to me, but, it was never, we were never in the car all that long. And then I remember when I went in college, I went to visit them one time, and I was like, what in the hell?
No, it's gridlock.
Yeah.
And they've tried the outer loop, and they've tried a lot of things, just like other big cities do, too. Couple of notes in basketball, then we come back with a break. Texas Tech got Federico from Pittsburgh, big, tall drink of water, 6'11" center. Started 53 of 68 games at Pittsburgh. Had back-to-back years in the top 3 in block percentage in the ACC. Also, Jizzle James, Edgerrin's son, returning to Cincinnati, announced that last night on his Instagram. And Jeremy Roach of Duke, the senior guard, is going to transfer. Maybe, I don't know. Could he end up with another blue blood? Not sure about that. He was pretty good, 14 points a game, shot 43% from threes. His year he has left is his COVID year, which you would think maybe this is the last year that the COVID year will be available.
But I see correctly, he's also entered the draft. So it's one of those things where, unless I'm misremembering that, but he entered the draft. So I guess it's going to be one of those, I'm in the portal. If I do come back to college, I'm available kind of a situation. But yeah, I mean, you don't see guys, it seems like at least leaving Duke all that often, especially somebody who's played a significant amount. But yeah, good get for Texas Tech. I saw a lot of positive feedback on that. Very excited to see what Grant McCasland can do, and I know they're breathing a sigh of relief. Looks like Baylor fans are breathing a sigh of relief now that the whole Kentucky saga's over with, because who knows if Grant McCasland would have left Lubbock, but being a Baylor grad and somebody on Scott Drew's staff for many years, obvious ties here, he would have been somebody getting one of the first, if not the first phone calls, and they don't have to worry about that now. So everybody wins, except for BYU, although they went and got themselves a really good coach from the NBA. So, yeah, everybody wins, although you didn't want to lose Mark Pope necessarily.
No, you didn't. But, boy, did BYU handle that, and we'll have
They handled it really well. Yeah.
Their voice of BYU Athletics will join us today in about 40 minutes or so. But just around the corner, we'll have Rhett Lashlee, head football coach at SMU. We got a couple of nuggets before you're going to join us on Zoom. Bud Elliott, his thoughts about how you decipher tweets when someone enters the portal or somebody picks up a transfer in the portal. And also a Mississippi State quarterback who goes to Mississippi State, ends up now announcing his transfer, and then misspells the football coach's name. That's when you know perhaps he's out. This is 365 Sports. An Ideal MRI is a great place to get what you need. 2 ways. 1, help your budget. 2, find out what is bothering you, what hurts so much. When I had the back procedure a couple of weeks ago, when I called the clinic, They said we need a recent MRI. We also need the reading or the diagnosis. And I called Ideal MRI, and I had a disc, but I wanted to make sure I had another clean disc. And they said, come by and pick it up, like an hour later, maybe even less than that, plus the folder and the diagnosis of what they had seen back when I had the MRI. Dr. Maxey actually is the one that called me up and said, okay, you got a little something going on in that L3, 4, 5, 6 area. And so that's what the doctors looked at. That's what they saw and also wanted to treat. And I got to tell you, I feel a lot more comfortable. My daily life is better. And it's not over yet. I still have to be careful, but also there will be more and more of me being able to man, the injection really did help. It was unbelievable. And it also was quick because of Ideal MRI. The diagnosis, the imaging, and all of that immediately was able to get that to the doctor where I went, and so can you in $497 or less every single time at idealmri.com in the Central Texas Marketplace off I-35 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Jack. Sorry about that, Jack. All right. Bud Elliott, a handy guide to deciphering tweets about the transfer portal. If they highlight a guy's career stats and not the stats from his most recent season, high chance he's an accumulator and not an impact player. Watch out for the snap count, which includes special teams as opposed to some other particular legitimate snaps.
Yeah. If they highlight his high school rating and he's been out of high school for 2 years, good chance he's a bust or he's been hurt. He's a bust at that level. If they mention a player was a preseason all-conference pick and don't mention anything about what he did during the season, chances are he got hurt or sucked. And if the player had flashes of production but has been at 3 or 4 schools, good chance he's a huge pain in the ass off the field, and the coaches are tired of his act.
I think that makes sense. I think it's pretty simple. It seems to me to make a lot of sense. All right. Also, this one from a young man that is transferring out of Mississippi State. It's a quarterback. There are, I believe, Jack, I'm not sure if there are a couple of different tweets. Yes. So the one at the bottom is I'm committed to Mississippi State. I'm coming, right? That's where I'm going. Dime time, committed, etc. His latest tweet, upon further guidance, I have decided to enter my name into the transfer portal. I would like to thank Jeff Leffy and all of the leadership at Mississippi State for my opportunity. I feel like my talent is underutilized. I look forward to the coming days. Respect my decision.
I'm sure Jeff Leffy certainly does.
It might be why he's down the job.
I mean, I don't know.
That's just a kind of have fun with that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he knows somebody named Leffy is autocorrect, or if that's what he thinks Jeff Levy's name is, then clearly that needs to, go a different direction. I guess that was a spell check thing most likely, but still, I don't understand the not reading. Like, especially when you're making these life announcements, I can't tell you how many of them I see, and people just don't care about spelling anymore. Like, they just don't care. Like, if people think lose is spelled with 2 O's. Yes. It drives me absolutely insane how many people think that lose, as in win or lose, is spelled like loose.
Yep.
I don't know. That's an internet thing, I guess, but the whole big announcement and then spelling errors is almost as commonplace as anything nowadays. So yeah, Jeff Leffy, why not? Right on your way out, go ahead and just get that wrong. But that's
if he wants to change his mind, Craig, and come back into the program, I think that door is shut.
I don't know. I'm sure Jeff Leffy doesn't care at this point. But yeah, if he were to come back, I think that's something would need to correct.
One young man that Craig you saw and I saw play last year for Weiss High School.
It's spelled with 1 O, guys. Lose is spelled with 1 O. Like, it drives me insane how many people think that lose is spelled loose. Like, where did we go wrong as a country?
Hey. We saw Adrian Wilson. He didn't do much. Weiss was blown out by Midway in the last regular season high school football game, but a very highly rated talent in that district that had a lot of talent. He was committed to Oregon and now appears to be on his way from Oregon, and there is a prediction he's going to end up with A&M.
Who is this now again?
This is Adrian Wilson, star receiver, highly level player, highly ranked player from Weiss High School, who has decommitted from Oregon, and now the prediction is he will end up with the Aggies. We talk about a lot that they've lost, but that could be a nice pickup. Whether he can play and contribute the first year remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. He's a Texas kid, so if you're leaving, then heading back home, I don't know. There's stats for everything. I don't know if there's a transfer stat on how many guys who maybe were out of state. Here's an idea: relocate back home, closer to home. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's the more common result or if it's just where the biggest bag is. Mm-hmm. I don't know which one's more desirable at this point, but I would imagine the combination of the two will land a lot of guys back where they came from. So yeah, good pickup on paper for Texas A&M. They're fascinating to me because they don't feel anything like they've felt in recent years. They don't feel like the in-your-face number one recruiting class, Jimbo, just angsty, sort of big money but pissed off all the time, and like little brother but wants to be, you know what I mean? Like, there's just kind of been this little feeling floating around them, and now it's like, oh yeah, A&M. you almost don't even think about them as much because, in a good way, it's been a quiet spring. Like, they're just going about their business. Mike Elko's not a super flashy guy. He's a very good coach. And I think that they hired a heck of a replacement for Jimbo Fisher. And I don't know how much it's changed the culture because I haven't paid that much close attention to the ins and outs of it all, but it's just not as loud and noisy and brash and distracting. Yes.
The longest periods of success in the history of A&M, the best ones. And look, Bear Bryant's one of the greatest coaches of all time, but you cannot say he was flashy. I mean, that's the Junction Boys. What's flashy about the Junction Boys? Nothing. That's not flashy.
Only the movie.
Yeah, and even then, it's not. So you have that. Then you had Emory Bellard, like Gene Stallings, Emory Bellard, those guys. It's Emory Bellard. He was hilarious, but he wasn't flashy. He was innovative, but it wasn't flashy. Jackie Sherrill was flashy.
Yep.
Kevin Sumlin, flashy. They had little bursts of success, but ultimately,
R.C. Slocum, not flashy.
R.C. Slocum was is as salt of the earth a human being as you're ever going to meet, ever. And he's the old school coach. They have Mike Sherman. Was not flashy, and they were building. It just he had a ceiling, and then now they've got back to Mike Elko, who's a guy who honestly I think if he gets one of those mailers from Old Navy is like hell yeah.
Oh man, 30% off jeans.
I think that the less you've heard about them might be better.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's been quiet in a good way for them compared to several teams over the past few years.
We are now joined by the head football coach of the ACC-bound SMU Mustangs. Rhett Lashlee joins us with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak on 365 Sports. It's great to have you on again. Rhett, thanks for your time. I don't think anyone ever answers all of the questions or checks all the boxes no matter what time or how long you have your spring or game or whatever. But how much would you say you did get accomplished and you know more now than you did maybe a month and a half ago?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Always good to be with you. I think the number one box we checked is we didn't have any serious season-ending injuries. And, as a coach in the spring, that's what you're always most concerned about because you at least want to start the fall as healthy as you can. I think spring's changed a lot. I mean, you're still trying to evaluate guys, and we're still trying to get better. But with the transfer portal always looming and just so many other variables out there, I don't know. Everyone's probably got a different take on it. And I think coaches are all trying to figure out the best use of it. I saw some spring games that didn't even play spring games. They just did a bunch of, crazy stuff. And so, and I get why, because you're wanting to keep people healthy. You're wanting to keep them happy and bought into what you're doing. And look, at the end of the day, if you start, putting depth charts together and people don't think they have a chance to compete, they're going to leave.
Yep.
And so I think we got to accomplish what we need to. I think we got a healthy culture, a healthy team. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. So far, I think we're in a good place with our team, but we're trying to keep our core team together and get to the summer.
Do you feel like this is different now that we've been through a couple of years of this with the transfer portal and the two windows and all of that's going on?
It is. It changes every year. I mean, what's different this year is, it used to, the first year there wasn't a window. And then we got two windows, but now we're the only one of the sports that actually has two windows. Everyone else has one window. So we have to do it in December and we have to do it now. Whereas men's basketball is doing it right now, but it's one window and it's a big window, but it's still one window. And so you're juggling that. And then what's new in the last year is, it's not like used to be, you got one-time transfer. Now you got as many transfers as you want. I mean, you got guys that are transferring in December to schools that are now transferring again now. And, I think guys deserve the freedom to go where they want to go and to capitalize on NIL and all that. But there's got to be some rules and structure. It's not best for the kids. And so that's the challenges that you're dealing with now. And so as coaches, you're just kind of this week and next week kind of holding your breath a little bit, trying to be around your own roster, hoping that come May 1st, you have a better idea who's going to be on your team this year.
Coach, what was, with all that in play and focusing on your base and now this big move in conferences, what was sort of the theme of the spring for the Mustangs? Was it a matter of needing to do a couple of things in particular better, incorporating some newness? Where did you sort of look for the theme of what you wanted to get done this spring?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, in terms of just the spring, we talked about, a couple things. One, we talked about Spring is for development, so everybody needed to get better at their craft. For us, spring, we did have transfers come in. We had guys leave. So this is a new team, and we were a really close group last year, but this is a new team. So the second part is just, having a togetherness, a continuity, getting to know each other, competing with each other in practice and even off the field, just developing that connection a real team has. And the third thing is we wanted to become a tough team, and not just physically tough. We were a tough team last year, but where we're going, we got to be a mentally tough team. We got to embrace doing hard things, because for us to win, we're going to have to play well, and we're going to get games to the fourth quarter, and we have to find ways to win and be comfortable in close games, be comfortable in tight situations late in the game. And that's a mental toughness component. So for just the spring, that was kind of what we went with, going in and coming out of spring. I think we had a good spring in that regard.
By the way, the ACC is right there on the horizon. I heard what Andy Enfield said about being interested in the job because of the ACC.
Yep.
And comes from USC to SMU. You were already there. I mean, you experienced the transition and the change and all of a sudden locked in. How much can you put words into what that has meant across the board to the campus, to everybody at SMU, and especially in athletics?
I don't know if I can put words, but I'll try. I mean, it's been massive. It's been a game changer for us. I think the easiest thing you can do is today, and it's a long way from signing day, but we have a top 20 recruiting class in the country. We've never had a top 20 recruiting class ever, and so the caliber of players that are now, everybody always thought highly of SMU and Dallas, and a lot of guys in the Metroplex wanted to stay home, but they also wanted to compete on the highest level. And we weren't in that arena, and now we are. And now they know they can come here, and Florida State's coming to town, and the next year Miami's coming to town, and so on and so forth. And I think that has just really changed everything from a recruiting standpoint for athletics, excitement. It also is probably helping us with guys not transferring out, right? And so then from a school standpoint, you can't measure it. I mean, our peers are now the North Carolinas, the Virginias, the Virginia Techs, the Wake Forest, the Dukes, the Florida States, the Clemsons. And our president walks into rooms with presidents from those schools. Our AD does. Our faculty is associated with that. And we all know, because of what we do, that the way football and basketball specifically, but athletics carries the banner for a school in terms of branding and just the exposure that you give your school. So while this gets talked about a lot as an athletics move, it was a massive move for our university to just be on a bigger stage nationally where we think we belong.
We're talking to Rhett Lashlee. He's the head football coach of the SMU Mustangs, with us on 365 Sports.
Coach, I saw that your season ticket sales have exploded as well, 50% over last year already, and it's only April right now. Given that's just pure excitement from the fans there too, that they've bought into this move.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot. I think they announced today, like you said, the 50%. I mean, they've sold more tickets now, the most ever before a season, and it's just April. And so hopefully that continues to climb between now and August. And we got 7 home games. You look, we have a stretch where we play BYU, TCU, Florida State 3 weeks in a row at home at Ford Stadium. So, I mean, I think just, and then in November, you got Boston College, you've got Pitt, and you've got Cal coming into town. So I just think it just has generated a different buzz with our alumni base, obviously, but even in the city and in the community. And then we're moving into a brand new facility in August. And so, the Gary Weber End Zone Complex will be open. We got a brand new home, but then also just great game day, premium seating situation. So there's just a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement. And so, we got to go deliver.
Rhett, you played at Arkansas. You also coached at Arkansas. Back when you were much younger, not much younger, but when you were early on in your career. Sorry about that.
It was much younger, for sure.
For a guy like my age saying that. Auburn, twice, then Miami. So you've been around what you would consider autonomy or Power 5 programs. How much of that experience can you use now?
I think a ton, from knowing what the players go through at that level to obviously being at Auburn and on that stage it was a big stage. But even at Miami just 2 years ago, which is in the league we're heading into, it definitely helps. And we got a lot of staff members that have, and it helps us, understand what we need to be able to compete with the schedule we have, not just on a 1-game basis, but week in, week out. And I think that'll help. And I think, another thing that'll help, not only us using that to try to help our players out and our team out, but in the transfer role, we got a lot of guys who have been in those leagues that have now come here. And so that'll give them some confidence that, there's not as much unknown maybe as there would have been before the transfer portal.
How much have you seen your out-of-state high school recruiting maybe uptick on this as well?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, whether it's, Southern California has always been an area that a lot of students come to SMU. So you might get a few guys out of there. But now you look at the East Coast, whether it's, Atlanta in the state of Georgia, a lot of players will leave Atlanta or South Florida. And so, we're not going to get away from our base. I mean, we're in Dallas. We got the best recruiting base in the Metroplex in the state of Texas. But we're going to play half our games that way every year. And so, or at least 3 or 4. And so I think that that definitely helps us more from a national stage, try to have a bigger pool to pull from.
Do you have to, and don't take this wrong, please don't, but do you have to be aware of the attrition of playing the schedule you're about to play?
No, I'm not taking it wrong at all. You're right on, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, we've proven over the last 5 years, we've beaten TCU. We went to Oklahoma and played well, and Maryland and Michigan. And, so we've been on those stages. Our guys know they can compete on those stages and even win on those stages. But it's a big difference, as we know that have done it, from playing 2 or 3 of those games a year and then playing 10 in a row. And so from depth, could be physically just from injuries or just the physical, especially in the trenches, just the wear and tear of a season. That's going to be, I think, the biggest adjustment that we're doing all we can to prepare for. But sometimes it takes a few recruiting cycles to get there. I do know this. It's a leap year, so everybody has 2 bye weeks. Well, because of our scheduling with Vanderbilt leaving late and we ended up picking up Nevada, we're playing week 0. So believe it or not, we got 3 bye weeks. Huh. So we actually never play more than 3 games in a row if you look at our schedule. And so normally I would hate that. But actually this year, I think that's really good for us because we'll play 3 games and get a week to recover, 3 games, a week to recover. And that may help us that last half of the season, especially this first year.
Have you talked to other coaches who made that transition from group of 5 to an NCAA, the FBS highest level, and how they handled that? Like, I know that, for example, Gary Patterson in TCU initially had pretty good success. He's now at Baylor. But have you picked the brain of others who've dealt with that?
I have. I picked the brain of some, and there's some I haven't got to yet that I'm going to be blowing their phone up here in about a month. You look at, obviously Gus Malzahn I'm close with. He just made the jump last year, so that was an easy one. I do know Gary, and I've talked to Gary because you're right. I think a guy like Gary, and then look at Kyle Whittingham out at Utah. They made the jump, and they didn't just make the jump and show up. They made the jump, and they started competing for championships. And so you try to learn what they did that maybe worked. You try to maybe learn what they wish they would have done. And I think experience and that wisdom is something that I'm trying to draw on from others as much as we can.
How much of that sunburn is from going to Augusta National with your sons? And had you ever been there before?
Why you got to call me out with a sunburn?
It might
Someone told me I looked tan today. I took that as a compliment, and you call it a sunburn.
It might be the lighting.
The lighting.
It might be
probably the lighting.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to go with.
How much of that incredible good-looking sunburn that now is a tan came from that time at Augusta National with your sons? I saw your tweet about that.
Yeah, a lot of it. I had been before. I'd been fortunate to go once many years ago with my dad. And then my time at Auburn, we were close. And we got to go a few times. But I hadn't been in a while, and my boys had obviously never been. And it just was a late impromptu deal. We went on Friday, actually. And it was a neat. I mean, look, if you're at Augusta, like my kids halfway through the day go, "Dad, everybody's really nice here." And I'm like, "Yeah, we're at Augusta. We're at heaven on earth. Nobody's in a bad mood,
right.
Except the golfers." But it was really, really cool, one, to be there, but to just get to share something like that with your boys. And we don't get to do that a lot, just us. We got their sisters and mom a lot. And so it was a really neat experience to share with them.
Can you try to describe, like the first time I went, the undulations, like below number 9 green, or anything, quite frankly, how a ski slope from the tee box to number 10 green and what that is like?
I can actually, believe it or not, I got to play it once.
No.
And so, back in about 2016, we had a member who was a big Auburn supporter who took us up there, and a couple weeks afterwards. And I was, they had actually the Sunday pin placement on number 2, and I was about 10 feet above the hole. And I think I blew on it, and it went 10 feet past the hole. So And when the grandstands and that stuff's not out there, you can see the undulations even more. And it's just, it's like putting on glass, and it just makes you respect and appreciate those guys' ability even more, because, I mean, it is unbelievable. If you're missed in the wrong spot or you're on the wrong side, you can forget about it.
Yep.
Number 3 is the one that stands out the most. That number 3 green is as narrow as is your desk you're sitting at.
There's no advantage whether you blow it up towards the bottom of it, at the bottom of the hill, or if you're 150 back. I mean, there's just no way. It's like a 5-foot area. You got to hit it based on the pin placements.
100%.
Preston Stone, my last question for you. Preston Stone has been out. Kevin Jennings has been running the show. What did you see there?
Well, I think, on one hand, it was great for Kevin. We saw what he did when he came in and helped us win the championship game. And I actually think he played well in our bowl game. We just didn't play well. And then he had all spring to get all those reps. And I just think, as good as Kevin has been in his first 2 years when he's been in, he's still only been in a handful of games. And so that was big for him to get all the first team reps with all those guys. And Kevin's he's getting better now, and we're excited about his future and him wanting to be here. And then, Preston did get cleared last week. And so, he'll be full strength now as we go into summer workouts and fall camp. And so I think having 2 guys that are, in my opinion, championship level caliber quarterbacks, is huge for our team as we make this move into the ACC.
Thank you very much, Rhett. We appreciate your time. I'm glad you enjoyed Augusta. That tan looks fantastic. And appreciate you when you come on with us. We really do. Have a great day.
Always appreciate y'all having me on. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Rhett Lashlee, head coach at SMU. And I like that. He's like, no, the schedule is something that the attrition of that a lot of times when you go group of 5 into a whatever the names of the conferences are now, the 4 major conferences, that there is a jump and a wear and tear. Some have had it, and some have been able to deal with it pretty quickly based on the timing of when they jumped.
Yeah, I think SMU's got some tools at their disposal and plenty of history to look back on to soften that a little bit compared to maybe some that were sort of wandering through the dark like a TCU years ago had to do, or a Utah, what have you. He's had some good examples, as he mentioned there. But they're coming off of obviously a stellar final season in the American, and this is the big moment they've been waiting for. A lot of people feel like this is overdue. Some feel like this is just the beginning of the new era for SMU football, that they've always been, at least with the TCUs and the Baylors, they're similar private school, Texas-based institutions, and here's their big opportunity to show just that and welcome a Florida State into Dallas in the Hilltop to play a conference game. So I'm going to go on and on about all the newness, but they've got a really good coach whose star is continuing to rise. They've got a pair of great options at quarterback, as he mentioned, with Preston Stone and also Kevin Jennings, who's still just a young guy. But there's a lot to like about what's going on in Dallas right now. And who knows, they may be one of those teams that here in this state, I think we've constantly just kind of ruled out or put down or whatever because of what they had faced historically of the death penalty. But maybe this is their big moment. Maybe this is their time to shine. And certainly this is a huge moment of opportunity for them. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. And it's going to be wild seeing them line up against ACC teams and realizing this is a conference game. So that's going to make it just a fun and unique thing on its own whenever you see the ponies on TV.
I do find it, I guess I could say, entertaining, but also I kind of go, wait a minute, do you forget where you came from? When a lot of schools that used to be caught outside of a major power conference, and they are accepted that we're in the same boat. And they're like, well, we don't need SMU, and yet they were in the same boat. And it's, especially in the state of Texas, think about this. TCU was in the wilderness for a long time, had the unbeaten Rose Bowl team with Andy Dalton, and then Houston was in the wilderness. They're now locked in. SMU was in the wilderness. They're locked in no matter what the deals are about how much they get or not when it comes to joining the ACC.
All right, Rice, you're up. No, I'm just kidding. That's probably not likely to happen unless just things further dramatically shift. But, yeah, they got the call that so many others had to wait a while on, Houston most recently, and they're going to, have their chance on the stage to, put on for everybody and show them why that was long overdue. And they certainly have the backing and the pieces in place to think that they can make this transition. I do feel like the one area you can't necessarily always I mean, you can plan for it, but I don't know if you can fulfill it right away, is just your lines. I think that we've seen with all of those teams, the biggest adjustments don't come with your quarterback play. It's your offensive linemen and how they deal to playing a level above, or teams that have rotations of defensive linemen that they can bring at you and that are quality players, and then vice versa.
A wave of them.
That's the wave of them that you don't necessarily have the depth built up yet, and we've seen that become an issue for nearly every team that's joined. Now, that won't be the case for Utah or Arizona because those schools have already been playing on that sort of level, but it was for TCU. It is for Houston, and so on and so forth. So that'll be the biggest challenge, I think, when I'm looking at them, is just the depth situation, especially with the big guys up front, but they've had skill guys for years now, got good quarterback play, and they've got a stellar location to attract talent to. So, and they've got the right coach, I think, at the right time as well. So I think things are looking really good for SMU, and there's a lot of reasons to be excited.
He's a young guy. He's innovative. He's been other places. He comes from a good coaching tree in Gus Malzahn. He knows how to build the right way. And again, he honestly, they can have a very, a middle of the road ACC team if he just sat in Dallas and cherry picked guys that would come to SMU. And they can have a really good one if he, when they do branch out, which they will. That's just the benefit of it. Like, look, Miami is kind of a similar situation in the ACC, right? Like, they've never been great because they've got, they really kind of have leadership problems all through this time, but they've also never been totally awful for a very long stretch because you can just sit there and accidentally get guys who can win 7 games by just recruiting that city.
Between him just going, I don't know, I'm not good about distances and minutes, but how long is it from the Hilltop to Duncanville and DeSoto?
Half an hour,
maybe, like with traffic. And that's like 2 of the most talent-rich programs in the entire country that are just there, not to mention when Allen has their full plethora of guys and the numerous other schools, the hundreds of other schools just in the Dallas area alone. So, it's a prime spot to go and find talent. If you just curate your backyard a little bit, you should have a pretty good class to rely on every year. And with the money backing they've got right now, they're clearly going all in, and getting into the ACC was part of that big push. And let's see what they can do with it now. It's like anything else. What were we talking about yesterday? I kept saying, like, let's see what they do with it now. I don't remember what the topic was, but it all sounds good and it all sounds great, but now what do you do with it? And so that's the question.
You want what you want, and then all of a sudden you're like, damn. And you kind of, I like how he was very honest about that. In 2010, when TCU beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, they ran the table. They were unbeaten. In 11, they were 11-2. They joined the Big 12 in 2012. Now, granted, Andy Dalton also moved on along with some other great players. They were 7-6 and then 4-8. It hit them. But they also then had that really good team, had that great shootout with Baylor, and had an incredible team that almost made the college football playoff in 2014. And they had some nice runs, no doubt. But it took them a couple, 2 or 3 years to get used to that. And if we ever get a chance to talk with Gary Patterson, might be a pretty good question about how they handled the transition and what was the most difficult part. When we come back, BYU didn't take long to replace Mark Pope. He's at Kentucky. Now they have Kevin Young. Greg Wrubell, voice of BYU Athletics, is next on 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. It's Wednesday. You've got a little less than an hour and a half. Call them. You can have a shrimp and crawfish boil this weekend. You need corn. You need sausage. You need the seasoning. They have it. And that's what they do. They also have a full-service butcher shop and bakery, too. But they have what you need for a really good, and I mean it could be a big, large crawfish boil. 30-pound sacks of crawfish available. If you order by 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, that's today, you could pick up at any time later on, I guess after about 4 o'clock on Friday or while they're open on Saturday. Potatoes, mushrooms, crawfish, crab legs, and the shrimp. And yes, they also have what else you need when it comes to corn on the cob. It's there for you. It is all you need going to their place if you're going to have a crawfish boil. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, this 4 o'clock hour, rolling along. Greg Wrubell, voice of BYU Athletics, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul, Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Greg, thank you very much. When the Mark Pope story popped in Kentucky because of how Kentucky was looking, and it looked like they were like a little bit flailing, and then all of a sudden go back to the captain of a championship team, did you think BYU could recover and have who they have as quickly as they did?
Well, it took Scott Drew and others saying no to set the wheels in motion. Had Scott Drew or Danny Hurley or Nate Oates or anybody else said yes, we wouldn't be talking today about this. But it got to Mark Pope. And after being told no more than a few times, they wanted a yes. And they got the biggest possible yes they could get by bringing in a former player who holds that out as his dream job. So once it got past Scott Drew, I knew that it was a fait accompli. I absolutely knew that Mark Pope would be the next guy they go to because they had to get somebody that wanted the job, really wanted the job, and that certainly applies to Mark. So again, once it got past Scott Drew, it was all she wrote. Now that said, Tom Holmoe said this morning it was 2 minutes after he hung up the phone with Mitch Barnhart that he was pursuing Kevin Young. They went one place and one place only for their guy, and they got their guy. And it's hard to argue that BYU could have done any better in a very quick and qualified coaching search than to get the highest paid current assistant in the NBA.
Greg, going NBA route too, does that open doors that maybe have not been there also for BYU, especially in this new era of NIL and everything else? I saw Tom's video as well, talking about donating to the NIL fund.
Right. Well, he's got certainly the connections that he hopes to lean on and can lean on. And I think as much as as just having the ties and having the ability to have someone like a Chris Paul or a Devin Booker or someone like Kevin Durant, share some thoughts with him and or his team that could possibly benefit the program moving forward. He also has a brother that has been as close in the high school recruiting circles as anybody over the last number of years, and has an interesting connection that way. But when you coach as long as Kevin Young has, he's still pretty young. He's only 42. He's done it at the college level. He started off in college coaching, and then has been with the pros for so long. But you establish ties that reach far and wide in the world of basketball, whether it's pro or collegiate. But there's no doubt that there will be some sort of connection in the professional ranks that will pay off for BYU moving forward.
Greg, I mean, I think it's kind of a big point of just the faith aspect of this all. I mean, just how much does that make this whole transition and the ability to embrace and kind of wrap your arms around a guy when he has that personal connection, that spiritual connection with so much of the BYU faithful?
Well, and by the way, I was impressed by the spiritual connection Scott Drew referenced.
Yes.
When it came time to recommit to Baylor. It's important, right? It's important to a lot of people out there. And Scott Drew's one of them. And now it's not a policy at BYU, but it's practice at BYU. Mm-hmm. That the highest profile coaches, football and men's basketball, have always been members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so if that's going to be one of your starting points, the coaching recruiting pool is always fairly shallow, relatively speaking, to any other school in the country. And so, Kevin Young was certainly at the top of that list among qualified coaches who share the faith.
So one of the things I noticed is that, you just brought that up, you and Craig, but the process itself sometimes can be elongated, and that BYU reacted maybe quicker with the process of who they would interview or how they would go through the process of that. How much do you think that helped? And that also how much they're spending? Because this is a commitment, and how much to being a part of the Big 12 does that help as well?
Yeah, there are certain procedural steps you have to go through at BYU that require leadership approval at the highest levels of the church. But as Tom Homo referenced this morning, there are exceptions to the timeline rule. And so a typical timeline for an average university hire might be much more elongated than what they had to do with Kevin Young. But they had to do it because that's the environment BYU is operating in now relative to the portal and everything else, and the fact that he's in the NBA playoffs. There was a lot going on that had to get done rather quickly. So it was different for BYU in terms of timeline, for sure. It's different for BYU in terms of financial resources. If the reports we're reading are accurate, this is more than BYU's ever paid for a coach. And certainly the initial term, 7 years also is unprecedented. And so there are a lot of things about this search that show that BYU is prepared to operate at a different level, with the Big 12 being just a part of that environment you described.
Can you describe the on-campus, around the athletic department reaction when that was solidified?
Everyone's thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And it was a pretty big mood swing because you had a successful coach who had some momentum rolling and left for a job that he clearly preferred over BYU. And that could take the wind out of some sails. And for a couple of days of silence and searching, of course, the administration was actively searching, but a couple of days of silence and to wait and to wonder, and knowing where the coaching pool was and who might be the names they're talking to land Kevin Young is a best case scenario, and has totally energized and re-energized this fan base, which was already pretty high octane to begin with. It was a pretty successful year. When you pick to finish 13th in the Big 12 and you finish 5th, and you get to the NCAA tournament, you don't want to backslide. You don't want to lose that momentum. I think what Kevin Young does give you the chance to keep the ball rolling.
So spring football now, of course, we're getting to the end of that for everybody. How do you feel that the team has come together and shown some different things, as hard as it is to tell what's really going on in spring football?
Yeah, BYU spring football wrapped up a couple of weeks ago, actually. They were one of the first to do it and wrap it up. And the big storyline was the quarterback position, as it is a lot of schools. But BYU's gone into a lot of springs and summers recently with a pretty established pecking order, and it wasn't that case this year. So that was what people were looking for, was Jerry Bohannon coming in, a former Baylor quarterback, as you're well aware. Jerry Bohannon coming in, what can he do? What can he do to compete with to Jake Retzlaff? Now, Jake had the reps last year, came in as a replacement for Keaton Slovis, didn't have a lot of success, but there was a lot of novelty around him, and I think he could stay expected to be better this year. And how much can Jerry push him? How healthy is Jerry after all of his previous issues? And so I should say Gary. And so that becomes the big story is the Bohannon Retzlaff competition. Where does that end up once we really get going in August?
We're talking to Greg Wrubell, voice of BYU Athletics on 365 Sports.
Greg, where do you have your most questions right now? I mean, obviously it's just spring ball. We don't want to overstate the importance of it. It's a great development time, but there is still this whole portal window that's about to come. I know things can be a bit more unique for BYU, but just where do you sort of sit on a year in the books, knowing the changes that have already occurred, and kind of just what are you expecting to, I guess, see ironed out here over the coming months as we kind of go quiet a little bit?
Well, I'll underline quarterback again. That'll be the headline competition in August. And then defensive line. They put a lot of off-season eggs in the defensive line basket. And I think that's where they felt they needed to make the most improvement. Jay Hill, as a defensive coordinator, did a lot for BYU in year one. What they didn't get out of Jay's scheme was the kind of disruption that his scheme requires out of the front four. And so I want to see what that D4 looks like in August on the defensive end, and who among Bohannon and Retzlaff emerges and how quickly they do on the offensive side.
Greg, we just had Rhett Lashlee on at SMU, and they're about to join the ACC. One of the things that Kalani had talked about with us, as good as BYU has been in the schedule that they played, the national brand, there's still a transition period. Did you notice that last year, and what was the part that you noticed the most?
What I noticed the most and how it showed itself was how the grind of a 10-game P5 schedule affected BYU. Let's not forget, BYU was 5-2 at one point last year, and they did not win again. So they lost their last 5 games, and the attrition was real. The wear down was real. Once they lost Keaton Slovis, and that was a big hit. We can't just gloss over the fact that their starting quarterback was gone for much of the latter part of the season, and you had to bring in a kid with no Division I experience. That plays into it, certainly. But I thought year one of the grind showed just how tough P5 football can be. And BYU had an introduction to it at a lower level, guys. As an independent, you could schedule those 4, 5, and 6 Power 5 teams, maybe 7 per year, but you didn't have 10. And to have it week in, week out, and play that schedule, I think showed itself by the end. That said, disappointing finish, right? You're targeted for a bowl game at 5-2, and you don't get to the postseason. So hugely disappointing way to end it, and losing 2 games at the very end to OU at home and in Stillwater that were winnable games for BYU. And that kind of added to it the fact they were so close. And if you can get to the postseason in your first year in the Big 12 in football, you've got a really strong stepping stone and springboard to year 2, much like basketball. In their first year in the Big 12, got to the NCAA tournament, and it was right there for BYU, but they couldn't quite grab it.
When Mark Pope announced he was leaving for Kentucky, which made, as you mentioned earlier, all the sense in the world at that point, were there any hard feelings, or it was obvious, oh, my God, he has to go back to where he's from?
Well, I think everybody expected that if and when the Kentucky job opened, he'd be a candidate for it. I think the expectation was that it would be a few years from now, after he had done bigger and better things at BYU. And as it turned out, it was a narrow window, and it opened thanks to guys like Scott Drew staying put. Mm-hmm. And once that happened, the process was accelerated. I mean, you wouldn't expect a guy with no NCAA tournament wins and no first place finishes in a conference to be the guy at Kentucky, but because of the circumstances, he was that guy. Now, if you'd given him another 5, 6, 7 years here at BYU, maybe you are talking about tournament wins and contending for a conference championship. That makes him a more natural pick at that time, because clearly, his resume doesn't match what the previous Kentucky coaches had going into Lexington. But it was a different scenario. It was a timing thing. It was a kind of save face thing. Get a guy that's a hard yes, and it all worked out that way. Again, Kentucky was going to be something for him because he played there, won a national title there. He said that all of his ADs that he's worked for and associate ADs have known that Kentucky was kind of that dream job for him. So not unexpected, but the timeline certainly was.
Kevin Young has been praised everywhere you could go, from those who know him, coached with him, played with him, obviously with Devin Booker, Chris Paul, among others. I think it's awesome. Doug Haller, I saw you retweet a profile on him in the athletic.com. It was really cool to see all the things that were said about him. Greg, thank you very much for your time. I'm glad that you were very kind to me when I reached out to you and I was trying to get a hold of what I thought, I didn't know, just some big BYU alum that owns the Utah Jazz in Ryan Smith. And I said, hey, do you have any way I could contact him? And thank you for being kind, sir. Thank you very much. Not telling me I'm an idiot.
No, there are some guys that are tougher to reach than others. And I know Ryan, we have a good relationship, but his plate's really full right now for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yep, and that NHL team.
NHL team,
We'll hit him up on Instagram. It'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. It turns out Ryan Smith's taking a lot of things out of Arizona right now.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Great stuff, Greg. Congratulations. Thanks for your time. Greg Wrubell, been a go-to for us, along with others, when it comes to covering BYU and the whole coaching hire of Kevin Young.
I think that was a situation, the Kentucky job opening up, where 3 schools are better off after the fact than they were beforehand.
Yep.
I think that in the case of Kentucky, they maybe wanted a Scott Drew or a Dan Hurley or a Rick Pitino, or, I mean, the list can go on, a couple more names if you wanted to, but no need to. And instead they bring a guy back into the fold who is one of their own and who had a terrific season for BYU, but somebody who very clearly, just by judging his first press conference, has them, I mean, just as jacked up as humanly possible and excited for Kentucky basketball on a level that they haven't been in a really long time. And it's different because it's a guy that has won a national championship there. It's a guy that is one of theirs, leading the way. And then with Scott Drew, I mean, Baylor fans have felt like he's one of their own. He didn't go to school at Baylor, but is he the longest tenured coach, period? I mean, is it like I don't know.
For who?
For Baylor Athletics. Has Glenn Moore been around longer? I don't know the history.
With Kim gone now, because she was there a little bit.
Paul, do you know?
Yeah.
I think Scott and Glenn are right there together.
Yeah. Well, track and field with Clyde Hart and
but
he's not about the major.
They've changed coaches. I'm talking about just period sports. Like the track coach has changed since then. It changed a couple years ago.
Yeah. So it's either Scott or Glenn.
The ones who had been on.
Who's right now on campus that has been here the longest?
Glenn
is what I'm talking
Smith,
about.
I would say.
Glenn Moore.
Glenn Moore.
Yeah, but not much longer than Scott.
So Scott's been there a really long time. So he's basically a Baylor guy at this point, as much as you possibly can be. And I saw they actually had fun. He and his who was that? What is the proper term for it? Was his lender or his real estate guy that he was meeting with?
No, it's Alliance Bank. It's Eric Shiro.
What is the I guess the way he was using him?
He is a friend. He is part of the
Booster.
bank. He's a donor.
Okay, well, any number of those things. Yeah. They were back at Mikasi today, and they were signing the booth. They were autographing the booth where they were. And so, they had fun with that. And Scott, obviously now, I mean, has made as big an investment as he's ever made into Baylor athletics, and I think vice versa. And so that is now, I think, on a different level because of the fact that he's turned down Kentucky to remain at Baylor. And so you feel better than you felt great before, but now you really feel great about the state of Baylor basketball. And then with BYU, you lose a really good coach, but now you bring in a guy who's the top paid assistant in the entire NBA. He's obviously got the spiritual tie-in. He's got a lot of people raving about him, and you can show graphics from Chris Paul and Devin Booker to say, hey, guys, want to go play for this guy right here? I just think everybody ended up in a better spot, or as good, or if not a better spot, with those 3 schools post-Kentucky coaching search.
Could have been even more chaos.
That doesn't happen all the time, so I think that was unique and great for everybody.
Glenn Moore, 24th year, and Scott's 21st year, wrapped up. And so he is long on the totem pole at the top as far as years with Baylor as a head coach. When we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to have Alfred Henderson, former Baylor running back, who is going to be honored tomorrow. Lunch with a Legend. We'll have more information on that. He's next. This is 365 Sports. It's Dodge Power Shot Days, continuing at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco with some of the hottest deals of the year, starting with the new 2024 Dodge Hornet GT all-wheel drive for $29,999? Or how about the 2023, the new Dodge Charger SXT all-wheel drive for $30,990? And the 2023 Dodge Challenger GT at $31,487. How about the 2023 Dodge Charger SXT for $28,925 during Dodge Power Shot Days? If you like extreme, they've got extreme power with the Demon 170 with over 1,000 horsepower. Pop a wheelie straight from the manufacturer and also run on jet fuel. Alan Samuels has one of those last ones left in the country. Call it the last call model, as Dodge will not build the V8 Hemis in 2024. If you want cutting-edge technology, come by and drive the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4xe. Save over $13,000 in values. 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xe and save over $15,000 in values. These two world-class SUVs run on battery or gas with world-class technology. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340, east of 84 in Waco. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, entering the last week of the Jeep Celebration event with unbelievable deals like a 2023 Jeep Compass Trailhawk for $29,990, a 2023 Jeep Renegade. This is at Alan Samuels in Waco for $25,714. How about the most decorated SUV ever, a 2023 Grand Cherokee Summit with over $13,000 off MSRP. That's right, a 2023 Grand Cherokee Summit with over $13,000 off MSRP. The latest addition to the Dodge family, the 2023 Dodge Hornet GT, loaded up $37,525, all prices plus tax, title, and license. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager, he and his staff put together amazing values along with dealership brands as well. You have an opportunity to get the vehicle you want right now. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com with me, David Smoak. And tell you what, you guys keep rolling along. You do have yet another date, correct, for an online and live auction?
Yes, our next online and live auction will be Thursday, April 25th.
We've discussed how this has been unique and how people have reacted to it. Has that momentum continued as you've done more?
Yes, it's kind of half and half. We'll have a good amount of people there that are from the area, and then we have probably 40% that we ship out. And everybody that I've delivered locally to has talked about how much fun they had, and they want to know when the next one's going to be. We've gotten great feedback from the people that we've shipped to. They're all just so excited about this event, and they can't wait for the next one to happen.
Premium grade East Texas beef. Customers don't have to go out and buy their beef. TexasBeefHouse.com. From their family and their ranch to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Tomorrow, at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, Baylor will honor former running back, great NFL, also a high school star in the city of Waco, Alfred Anderson. The former running back will be honored in the Lunch with a Legend series. Doug first told me, in fact, if you are still interested, want to go, it's tomorrow late morning at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Tickets are, at least a few are still available. Alfred joins Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. What does it mean to you, Alfred? I know you've been honored before, but to be a part of this event when they reached out to you.
Hey, this is very special, David. I went last year when Mike Singletary did it, and I remember talking to Doug. Doug said, "We need to get you." And I said, "Yeah, Doug. I've been wanting to do this, so just let me know." And so about 2 weeks ago, I get a call from John Morris. And so John asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, definitely. It's a great honor. It's a great honor to be a Baylor legend and to be able to share my story that people really don't know how I got to Baylor. And so it should be a fun event tomorrow.
Alfred, you grew up here in Waco, so I mean that was the first, that was the closest school to you. How close did you come to going maybe somewhere else and not Baylor?
I was 100% going to U of H.
Ooh.
That's where I was going. I was Coach Yeoman that came out and watched me play. I remember one Friday night he came to John Tyler when we played John Tyler, and they were ranked like number 3 in the state of Texas. And I look up in the stands, and there were Coach Yeoman and one of his assistant coach watching the game. And they were really heavy recruiting me to go to U of H. And plus, I can't recall the quarterback name at the time. He was a senior. And so they were looking for a quarterback to come in and take over. So that's where I was going, buddy.
I'm going to guess the name, and this is from being able to remember that time period. Was it Danny Davis?
Danny Davis.
Terry Elston and Audrey McMillan, who's an East Texas boy from Carthage.
Okay, yeah. And I played with Audrey. Elston was there. And then there was another one that played after Davis.
Brent Chin was on that roster. I'm going to have to look up another year. But they ran the veer, Alfred. I can't imagine with what you were and how versatile you were, that you running something like that would have been just like glorious.
Because that's what we were running in high school my senior year when Coach Tom Flood made me the starting quarterback. And so that's why Coach Yeoman wanted me so bad, because I ran the same type of offense that U of H ran.
Lionel Wilson?
That might.
He had most of it. The McMillan was still there, but Lionel Wilson was also one of the quarterbacks that got a lot of snaps in 1981.
What about Elston?
Yeah,
Elston there?
Yeah, Elston would have been there the year that you would have in 1980. Yes.
And
he was fantastic. He ran that offense incredibly well. And Bill Yeoman and company, they were rolling and had a great run early on in the Southwest Conference. So that's where you were locked in. What changed?
That's where I was locked in. What locked in was, and like I tell people and kids today, that sometimes you have to make important choices in your life. And that was one of the times I had to make a choice in my life. And what happened was I went on a visit, and I remember 2 guys came to pick me up from the hotel, and they were getting ready to take me to Coach Yeoman. And when I got into the car, these guys were smoking marijuana and drinking early in the morning. And right then and there, I said, I can't come here. And that's the reason why I didn't go to U of H, because I didn't want to be a part of that, in that atmosphere, that social life. So that's what changed my life, to not go to U of H. And I know all the years Coach Yeoman always wanted to know why or what changed my mind to not go to U of H. And I remember we was at a banquet, one of the Baylor Hall of Fame banquets, and we were sitting at the same table. And I was telling myself, you know what, I'm going to tell Coach Yeoman the reason why I didn't go to U of H. And so he had got up. I thought he was getting up to go to the restroom and coming back. But when he got up, he and his wife was leaving. And so, man, I said to myself, I missed the opportunity to let him know the main reason why I decided not to go to U of H. But that was the reason why I didn't go to U of H, because of what I experienced that Saturday morning before I got ready to meet with him.
So did you call Grant Taft? Did you call, who was it? And what was that conversation like?
No. What happened was Coach Taft knew that I was 100% going to Houston. And so after my visit, Coach Taft came over to Richfield that Monday afternoon. And we talked, and he asked me about my visit to Houston. I said, well, Coach, you know what? I don't think I'm going to Houston. I said, I'm thinking about going to Baylor. And then next thing you know, Coach get on the phone. Hey, Dave, Alfred. And so next thing you know, I'm talking to Dave Campbell, and I'm telling, Mr. Campbell, like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Baylor. I didn't say I was going. I said I'm thinking about it. And before we get out the meeting, it was all over the wire. Alfred committed to Baylor.
Yeah, Dave Campbell's power and the power of him writing anything at the time was probably at that time more than anyone else in the state of Texas when it comes to that. I'm not so sure that wasn't a plan. Hey, Dave, write about Alfred Anderson, and now he can't back out of us.
That's what happened. And so when I heard that, I said, well, I guess I'm going to Baylor.
I think a lot of people sometimes, it's not that they forget about you. That's why you're coming back. Well, what you did at Richfield High School, how awesome you were there, and then what you did at Baylor, but also had a hell of a run in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings, including being a part of an all-rookie team. How was the transition from Baylor, where they had a lot of players enter the NFL in the Coach Taft years, to Minnesota? How was that for you?
It was a great experience. I mean, Baylor ran a type of pro atmosphere football program. And so when I went to Minnesota, we were pretty much prepared, even though the terminology was different. I remember Coach Turner, how he would explain our blocking scheme was, okay, if the tackle's covered, man outside, you block the man outside, which is a 3-4 defense. And then he says, if the tackle covered, no man outside, you block the man inside, which is a 4-3 defense. And so when I get to Minnesota, I said, man, this is what Coach Turner was teaching us, the 3-4 and the 4-3 defense. But the way he explained it to us, so we, as running backs, we could get it. But that's how we had to understand. If the tackle's covered, man outside, we block the sound backer. If the tackle's covered, no sound backer outside, you block the sound inside, the backer inside. So yes, Baylor prepared us for the techniques and the terminology for the NFL.
Alfred, what's it like to watch the running back position become what it sort of has these days, of where there's stars that are long-lasting? It's few and far between to see guys be those mainstays of the position. It's just kind of in and out now at this point, turning it over every 2 or 3 years for a younger guy with fresher legs. What do you think of, and not a lot of guys, if many, getting all big contracts at that position. Just how do you kind of take that and how you sort of absorb that as a former running back in the pros yourself?
Things have changed. Like I said, over the last 30 years since I played, It's not like it was back then in the 80s and 70s and 60s where, I can't understand how a running back can, pick up 10, 15, 20 yards and then he tapping his helmet like he wants to come out. That was something I would never do. Only way I would come out the game unless I was hurt or injured. I would never come off the field because I ran 15, 20, 30 yards to come off. I want to play. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between the players in this time. They don't have the heart where they just want to play. Now there's one player I'll say that want to be the workhorse and run every play and without coming out. But the smaller running backs, all they want to do is come out, get one play, two plays, and come back in. But that's not how it was back then. Plus, they're making tons of money to just play half the games. Compared to us, we didn't make that much. My first year, I made $60,000. And played the whole game. And didn't come off the field unless I was injured or hurt, But that's the love of the game from the older players compared to the younger players in this day and time.
Alfred, we've heard, and we have been at Super Bowls year after year after year when they started to recognize the older veteran players who were not getting any benefits. Guys like Dick Butkus, Mike Ditka, among others, were there to discuss that. Are you now, or have you seen a change in what benefits you get now compared to maybe even 10 or 20 years ago or not?
Yeah, they finally, with the last collective bargaining agreement, finally kind of helped us a little bit. They do provide like a HRA plan for us. They also start with we get like $25,000 in Baylor Hospital where we have any need or any kind of colonoscopy or whatever. Yep. That money, every year they put $25,000 in there to kind of help us to pay for those things where we're not paying out of our pockets. Also, in the lab, they did increase a little bit of our pensions. And I want to say in 25, I believe they'll be going back to the bargaining table and hopefully they can help get us some more and there's guys that played in the 60s, those guys were making like $300 a month. How can you live off of $300 a month? Mm-hmm. But they have improved a little bit to help us out now. And then we have the trust that also help provide things for us like working out at the Y. Also going to Tulane University where we can get a full body screen of our bodies, brain, and everything. The prostate is a full body checkout. So that way, if something is going on with you, they'll definitely be able to find it.
That's awesome. And that's well overdue. I mean, these are some of the greatest names ever that were roaming up and down with all the radio stations. They were trying to get the word out, and it worked. I mean, it took a while. Gene Upshaw, who was a former player, and he was at the time the NFL Players Association president, but he wasn't budging, and it was weird. First, he was making a lot of money being the player agent or the player president, but eventually that did happen. The 1980 team, hell of a run, right? 10-2, and then what was it? Was it Notre Dame that closed out the year in that really low scoring, or was it Alabama in a game where they got you in the Cotton Bowl?
Yes, Alabama. Alabama beat us 30-2. But that was a run. That was a run. I want to say that's the best. I mean, to go undefeated in conference, be 8-0, that was very impressive. That nobody, I think the closest team that was close to us was like 3 games behind us with a loss, But that was impressive. And after that, I was thinking, man, this is how it's going to be for the next 3 more years.
You were spoiled.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, are you still working up in Tarrant County?
I'm retired.
Okay.
I'm retired, David. So I'm just enjoying life, and my schedule is based around my baby boy, Alex, who's 12 years old. So taking them to school, picking them up, taking them to practices and all that. So that's my job right now.
Well, that's a great job to have. You did work with the Tarrant County Advocate Program with young kids that were sideways. They were struggling. They had made some bad mistakes. What did you learn, and how much do you feel like you made a difference with them?
I think with my group, a big difference. Like I said, the first thing I do from day one, I give them rules. And if you give kids rules, those guys will abide by the rules. Compared to me being advocates for my kids, compared to the different advocates who would let them get away with anything and everything, and then when they decide they want to tell them don't do this, it's too late because you already gave them so much leeway to do what they want to do. But it has gave me, and I love kids, and I always want kids to always be right and know that even though you messed up this time, you can change your life around. And that's what was so important to me, to help build these kids up. And, I would take my kids to my church, and we would, clean the church, inside the church. And some of these kids never been inside a church, so to be able to experience that and do community service inside the church, and then there was one that went back to school and started doing real well in school, helping them get jobs and things like that, and vouching for them. So that was real dear to my heart, to be able to help the young men and the kids out there that make mistakes, that knowing that this is not the end, you can turn that around.
Well, it's awesome that you did that. Was there a time in your life early on when you could have gone one way or the other and somebody was the right one to point you in the right direction?
Yes, yes. That there was a coach that helped me, which the good thing, I was always a good kid, but sometimes as a kid, you always want to try to do something different just for the fun of it. And I thank God that the experience I had with that, it definitely turned my life around to never do anything like that again. And so yes, and you learn from those mistakes, and those mistakes will make you better in life.
You're a good one, Alfred. Thank you for your time. Good luck tomorrow. The event is tomorrow. Starts at 11:30 at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Lunch for the Legend featuring Alfred Anderson. Texas Sports Hall of Fame is right off I-35, right before you get to the Brazos River. If you want to drop on in, I think there are still a handful of tickets available. I'm sure that you could walk in and get one if you want. But good luck, Alfred. Enjoy tomorrow, and enjoy the attention, the questions, and the trip down memory lane again.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you guys.
You too, Alfred Anderson. He was a hell of a player. Rookie, all-rookie team his first year in the NFL. He was one of the top quarterback prospects in high school football coming out of Richfield, which eventually it's not even there anymore. Mm-hmm. It's now Waco High, and of course Waco High back in the mid to late 86 or 87 was one of the consolidated schools. Waco ISD, University High, is one that's also Derek Johnson eventually at Waco High University, of course, with Alfred, with Walter Abercrombie, Paris Cox, a guy named LaDainian Tomlinson. So there have been some stars who have come from that school.
Never heard of him.
Kenrich Williams in basketball.
Yeah.
Obviously has had a nice little career as well. I've lived here a long, but I'm not like a Waco guy. I didn't grow up here or anything, but. Where was Richfield?
I have no idea. It was after, I moved here and Waco High existed, so.
Gotcha.
I know one thing. I drive by on New Road. At times, on the way home, I'll drive by Waco High, which is on Lake Air. On New Road, and they are renovating that entire campus. University, of course, was redone, and it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to be done because it's all right by my house, so.
It is about, 8 minutes or so from where you are.
Not even. I mean, it's right.
Really?
I shoot out down Bishop and go around and I'm there. So
Bishop
can't
is
wait.
a speed trap.
A speed trap?
Everywhere you drive is a speed trap,
residential.
apparently.
It's residential.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
There's a school on it.
Shouldn't. All right. By the way, Jack McKenzie, thank you very much, Jack, for being here and doing what you've done today. It's been wonderful to have you as a part of the show. And Garrett Ross will be back tomorrow. Hey, one of the things we're going to bring up tomorrow is Dane Brugler's NFL mock draft. And everybody that he has drafted with what team, what round, that's connected to the Big 12 as we know it now, the 4 schools coming in and the 2 that are going out. And we'll have that list for you tomorrow here on 365 Sports.
Yeah, it's about that time. I mean, I know some do it year-round. I'm not that into the draft because I think there's only so much you can really talk about that's, you can talk about guys in general, but I'm more interested in like where they actually go and what they actually do at those places and how they fit in there. And so we're at that time now where, do we know all of the ins and outs of pretty much everybody at this stage? And I'm excited for it. I don't know. I think it's because there's not really any Baylor presence, because normally I'd have been to their pro day and there would have been 4 or 5 guys I would have written about and talked about their visits and those things. And there's been like none of that this year. Really for the second year in a row.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the draft from that standpoint of like covering it, so to speak, is sort of fallen off entirely these last couple of years. But as a Commanders fan, I'm nervous, but
they have picks too.
Enthralled by what they're going to do with this new ownership and who they're going to get as their new quarterback. And, if it is Jaden Daniels or whatever curveballs might be coming. So, there's such a long build-up to it nowadays because there's a whole cottage industry of just the draft. But we are now really knocking on the door, and I'm excited about that because we want to see where these guys land. Like, who are we going to make fun of the Cowboys for picking?
There's a couple of local picks. That's
where
right.
all the big quarterbacks going to land and let those conversations begin. So, it's going to be fun to see that start to unroll here in the next few days and look forward to getting into the weeds a bit on the Big 12. That's certainly an area where the conference, you add 8 schools in 3 years, you lose 2, so you gain 6 schools, but what are the draft totals going to look like? Even with you adding more schools, in theory, you should have more draft picks. Their presence has been sort of hit or miss. Like, a TCU a couple years ago puts a lot of guys into the draft, and you had a lot of people paying attention to that. But I'm very curious in just this new incarnation, especially with the transfer portal, especially with the advantages that a couple conferences have. Like, how heavy does it get? It's been heavy SEC for a long time now. But
by the way, Texas in their 8 to 12 guys drafted, it counts to the Big 12 because we love UT.
Well, they played in the Big 12, so
I know.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, talk about like holding up your end of the bargain. There were a couple years where they didn't have anybody, and that reflects on the league. Like, why are the Big 12? Well, Texas had 0 players drafted.
Yeah, still
Oklahoma had like 6 or 8 or whatever, given their number of years. But that's going to be like 10 guys a year that you're suddenly not getting drafted. So will the new schools make up for that or even add to that? You can see where Arizona's got a couple of surefire NFL guys if they can hold on to them long enough.
Utah's got a handful.
Utah's got some guys, obviously Cam Rising, but it's just going to be a different makeup of how much you're generating and how much you're putting into the pros.
All right, when we come back, a couple other nuggets to get to. Paul Catalina's top 5 is just around the corner. Thanks to Alfred Anderson for being a part of the show with us on 365 Sports. Tomorrow is the last of 4 consecutive days of the TAPS Private Schools State Tournament in tennis that has been held at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. And that place has had fire ants. So many people, buses, tournaments, matches, state titles. There were 3 food trucks there today, as they had a bunch of people from all throughout the state at an absolutely phenomenal tennis facility. I mean, you've got the pros that are there, including Britt. He does a great job with the youth tennis lessons. And I'll tell you another thing. They also have a pickleball tournament. They had a statewide pickleball tournament this past weekend. They had a WTA event this past weekend and a Baylor pickleball event coming up on Sunday, open to the public, which will be on Sunday, April 21st at DUPR Pickleball Collegiate Campus Regional, including UT out of Austin, TCU, Texas A&M, Arkansas, UMHB, Baylor, my alma mater, Stephen F. Austin, among many others. If you want to play tennis, if you want to learn tennis, if you want to see an incredible tennis facility and a place that is lit up right now with energy, with a bunch of people from throughout the state, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you. Red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports every weekday, 3 until 6. Paul Catalina's The Triple Option, bringing up the great memories of Bill Yeoman, those Houston Cougars team, among others, 1 until 2. And then, of course, we'll have 365 Sports tonight, every weeknight at 10:30 on the local CW. I want to go back to the transfer portal and some of the stats that we had. Max Olson's had some, among others. On a scale of 1 to 10, the first 24 to 36 hours, how would you rate it?
3.
I would say that was yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's a chance that could pop to a 7 or 8 on what happens over the weekend.
I don't see that being, like, I know that there's a lot of people who are still kind of pushing that, and maybe that's true.
Well, let's just be honest about it. Like, and this is not a knock on guys, and I'm sorry to cut you off at the pass here, Paul, but let's be honest about it and just call it what it is. It's people that benefit from the hype of it. It's it's driving your viewers to the transfer portal's going to be insane. Make sure you're locked in, and we could do that too, I suppose, but we're just calling it for what it is. And it's like, it's like a 3 on a 10 scale as far as just disruption level. And I think that would be totally fine because we got the craziness in the first wave, but it was just the fact that you had like some messages like leading into this the last couple of weeks of like, you are not going to believe what's about to happen. And you think it's crazy now. You've seen nothing yet, baby. And it was that kind of like, I guess, messaging that took me from just oh, hey, the transfer portal's about to open up. Bet that's going to be wild. To like, geez, what are they talking about? Like, what's about to happen here? Like, is Caleb Williams coming back to, or I don't know. I let my imagination sort of like, what starting quarterback's about to flip to his right, And so I'm imagining I'm not the only one that was expecting the date to hit and then just chaos to ensue. And instead we got like just pretty black and white, like guys entering the portal.
All right. Just to show you, like comparatively to what we had in the December portal. All right. I'm pretty certain that most people have heard of Damian Martinez if you're a college football fan.
Yeah.
Takario Davis, probably so because he's one of the better players in Arizona. But even then, Arizona is new blood to being relevant.
Sure. You're a really good player, though.
If you're a recruiting fan, you'd probably know Jacoby Matthews because he was a 5-star recruit a couple years ago. All right. According to On3, their 4th-ranked player available right now is Deron Hayes, defensive end from Pittsburgh.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right, now
Deron and I are cold. We're close.
Okay. Then you get to Branson Hickman, who's from SMU. Okay, now we're starting to get to the point of where I can just tell by the looks in your face, you're accessing parts of your...
I knew him only because I studied up for Rhett Lashlee.
But you're looking, you're going, okay. Yeah,
it's that's fine. It's great. Yeah, cool.
Okay, Jason Zandamalea from Southern Cal. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can keep going, but this is not Will Howard.
Why don't you name the next name you think you know or we know?
Yeah, we've hit a point, right? We're there. Okay. The next one I would bet you know is probably Keandre Lambert-Smith, who was at Penn State.
Yep.
Okay.
I will say last night, Sam Brown entering the transfer portal from Houston, which we didn't even mention, I don't think.
He's further down on the list.
But I mean, that's a guy who I think that's a big deal. And I'd imagine for some of these that you just mentioned who maybe have a closer eye on those particular schools, those particular leagues, they feel the same way about those guys as I feel about Sam Brown, But, so I think Sam Brown's an interesting – he's not like a number one wide receiver, I think, for somebody now, but he's going to be a really nice complement to a group of wide receivers. So, but,
But, so you're getting to the point where you either know these people from recruiting or you haven't heard of them. So there are guys, and I'm not saying they're not good players and they can't help a team, but we're not to the names that we had before, because if I click over to all status, I don't get to one of these names until 14, and that's Damian Martinez.
Yeah, and then Dominic Williams, I saw where he's lined up a visit to Oklahoma already, which there was a lot of signs pointing to that might be kind of already in the works. We'll see on that. And I know Damian Martinez, there's the Miami fever that's kind of going on for him right now. Him and
Cam, other visits before then too.
Yeah, he's got others, but there's some jumping to conclusions that might be his landing spot, which would be interesting, as I said yesterday, for Wazoo, Oregon State, so attached at the hip. They both lose their arguably like best player, one of their top players, and those two didn't go reconvene on the other side of the country in South Beach and be a 1-2 punch for the Hurricanes. That'd be interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to following that. I'm looking forward to seeing Sam Brown and Dominic Williams and Damian Martinez. And don't get me wrong, those guys are interesting names. I just feel like the sort of build up for this window belonged to the first window. That's the window where it was like, you think it's crazy now, like get ready, and then all the quarterbacks get unleashed onto the market, and then you have this whole mad dash to try to land the big quarterback. I think it's kind of like when we argue about the signing days, right? Like which signing day became more important, which window is more interesting. I think the first window is the more interesting window because that's the immediate grouping of some of the most interesting positions, especially with that quarterback spot. So yeah, it's all, there's some good players out there, but I think you read that tweet from Shannon Terry or whoever yesterday, right? I think that's the one you used.
About May?
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah, it was very meh, in my opinion as well. And that's okay. There's still a little splish splash here and there, but you're not getting, just that wow factor that maybe you were hoping for as a lover of chaos, or maybe as a fan of a team that you're hoping is going to have some big fish to maybe pursue. It's not quite maybe what's cracked up to be.
All right. One note it's a sad note. Albany was a school who Baylor played, remember, because of what was a canceled game. So they ended up playing Albany and Long Island in back-to-back years. And, Paul, where did Verse go to school?
He went to Albany.
He's going to be a first-round pick?
Oh, yeah.
Probably FSU. He was fantastic. And, unfortunately, today I saw Dane Brugler mention this. A.J. Simon, 25-year-old, passed away on what they are saying was a heart attack, and a young man that might have been drafted. And I know a lot of players might be drafted. But Dane Brugler, who I have a lot of respect for what he does, saying that there was a good chance he was a late-round pick and it was going to be in an NFL roster at least this summer, passed away at the age of 25. A horrible story involving that young man. So hate to see it, and good luck to his family and everyone else involved that knows the young man from Albany. It's interesting because I never really heard much about Albany. I know that they had played some high-level games before they moved up to FBS, and all of a sudden they play Baylor. They end up having verse. It goes to Florida State. They're pretty good. Was it last year that they made a deep run, I think, in the maybe in the FBS playoffs? And now the young man who's an NFL draft, at least prospect, has passed away at the age of 25. The story we started with today, and you please in the chat, let me know how you feel. We'll have Paul's top 5. The story about Jontay Porter, banned for life for gambling in the NBA on his team, games in which he played. He's done. He's been nuked. You think of Shoeless Joe Jackson, Paul, Craig, you brought this up, Pete Rose, and very few others that gambled. The NFL had players who gambled, Alex Karras among Paul Horning, but not banned for life. That's been a very short list as far as gambling. And do you think it's because we now know more about it, so there's more protection? Or do you think that because it's so prevalent, there are just people who don't get it and are dumb and don't know what they're doing?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes to both of those.
Okay.
There are the dumb ones, and then there are people who are duplicitous and are going to do anything wrong. Like, no matter what. Look, when sports betting was illegal in everywhere but Las Vegas, people still did this. So it's not like there's new things. Now there's new safeguards. It's better now, but it's not perfect, and nothing is. It is a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem, but I don't think it's going to be as widespread or like at crisis levels. It's just going to have to be dealt on a case-by-case basis until you see that there would be a crisis. I do think that people see something like Jontay Porter go, oh, my God, how can this happen? Well, it's pretty easy how it can happen. Like, how much is this happening? Well, probably a little bit more than you'd realize, but not as much as you would cause national panic over something. There are safeguards in place, and the more you continue to legitimize things and put more safeguards in place across the country, the easier it will become to catch these things.
Oh, no, yeah.
But he got caught really fast. So I like, again.
Well, dude, who's putting bets on Jontay Porter stats? I mean, he's playing, he's getting barely a minute here and there. I mean, who's doing over-unders on his totals? I mean, that's right there is the stupidity factor that you think that's not going to eventually get sniffed out by somebody, because talk about betting irregularities. You're sitting there looking through however it works, and that's weird. Somebody out there's putting thousands of dollars on Jontay Porter totals in this game. So, yeah, that right there is just dumb. Somebody will probably be smart enough to learn a lesson from that, though, or maybe learn how to avoid it and not be so dumb about how obvious that was. But, yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, it is what it is. It's like the college landscape right now, there's changes. Like, gambling's a part of sports now, for better or worse, and it's only going to become a more prevalent part of it. But there's definitely people getting away with it right now that we'd have no idea how they are or that they are. And there's going to be, probably some that continue to trip over their own feet. I mean, think about the Alabama baseball coach, the stupidity involved there, thinking you weren't going to get caught eventually. This right here, it's a handful of stories that we've seen in a year's time. So, yeah, I'm sure we're going to see more. But it's a combination of things, I think, involved in it, and to the point of your question there.
Yeah, we'll have the top 5 in a minute. But Amanda, Paul's wife, is the expert KU fan, and her favorite player was Johnny Furphy. Did you know that?
Her brother's favorite player is Johnny Furphy.
And he declared it for the NFL draft, but retained his college I'm Paul, I'm sorry, the wires are all crossed here. Retained his college eligibility. I'll never forget sitting down in that game when Baylor hosted KU and ended up winning by whatever it was and controlled the second half. When somebody, I guess a couple people to my left, said, Furphy started and he's not come back yet to play in the game, and he came back in because of foul trouble. Is he an NBA talent?
He is an NBA talent as a shooter. Most people think he's got to get bigger and stronger. But again, the NBA is not drafting on who can help me tomorrow. anymore, really. You know, the LeBrons and Kobes of the world, and like, look, Wemby had a great year, right? Did the rest of the Spurs? Not so much. Yeah. So, you know, like it's a different world right now. So they draft on potential. If he gets a lottery grade because of his ability to shoot, then he's going to get there, and the NBA is going to develop as opposed to Bill Self. So, you know, I do, like, I see a scenario where he's a bit of a tweener. Like, where he's going to get some incomplete information of, like, well, this team may really like him, but most of the others are like, we don't know yet. And he'll probably go back for another year. But, you know, there's also a problem with him in NIL because he's an international player. So that complicates things because visas and all this, and that's not even an NCAA issue. That's a U.S. government issue. So, all
right, you guys brought up, and I heard this earlier, the KJ Jefferson, the quarterback now at UCF. He got ticketed, and then I think had a unpaid ticket. Well, here's his response now to the story. I came to Fayetteville because my court date was today. I got a speeding ticket last year in May before the season. They took me down to the court. I ended up getting 3 days of community service. That's why you all are seeing my mugshot. That's what happened. It was a speeding ticket. I came back to Fayetteville only because I had a court and to pay my fine. I take all accountability for my actions and what I did. All the extra stuff about KJ did this, all the narratives y'all trying to paint, that's not true. I had a speeding ticket. So good, at least on his Instagram, for following up with that story.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that story. That was floating around Twitter for majority of the show. A lot of people posting his mugshot. So this is the first we're getting around to it. And basically the gist of it, from what I could tell, was that the amount he was going over the limit is what knocked it up a notch as far as the charge went. And that's what, I guess, initially is what spooked people was, wait a second, what's this that he's being charged with? And it was, just simply a speeding, but it was at a certain the level of speeding was such that it escalated to misdemeanor and not a regular traffic ticket. So it wasn't, some assault or anything like that. It was just simply a speeding ticket, so not a big deal in the grand scheme of things.
We might have him on as early as tomorrow. Not sure exactly when, but Carl Reed Jr., former college coach, who's also now working for CBS Sports as an analyst. The early leaders for Dominic Williams, Oklahoma, you mentioned that he will visit them, and Texas, official visit planned for Oklahoma sometime. It says here next week, so he is already in hot demand.
Lame.
Oklahoma, and also perhaps it seems like UT. Paul Catalina's Top 5 is next.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star with 0% for 72 months. Don't miss out on this incredible deal. Hurry in today and drive home in the truck of your dreams, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and You know, I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 teams, and these are our power conference teams that have the most portal entries so far. I don't know what this means. I just found it interesting that things are different. And look, Colorado is on this list, and they've added a couple more. So if something's happened since I sent this to Emory at noon today, I'm sorry. But as of the first day, in the first 24 hours, this is what they had. Number 5, Arkansas had 4. And I also graded some of this. Some other, like Texas also had 4, and they might have 5 or 6 now. But Texas has not lost a single player that their fans are worried about. Like, they're all guys who went through the spring, didn't move up on the depth chart, and are moving on. So Arkansas, although has lost a couple of guys, they might get a couple of guys back. But in a make-or-break season for Sam Pittman, they lost 4 in the first day, which I thought was actually a little low given what was happening there. But Arkansas lost 4 in the first day.
You know, it sounds like the fans who also, when they lose somebody at the last second who signs with somebody else, well, we didn't need him. But you're right. There are some that, you got to have attrition. You're over the limit, literally, with the 85 scholarships and incoming transfers, too. You got to kind of balance it off.
Yeah. Number 4, tied with Arkansas, is A&M. They have 4, and they have 2 of theirs. And the reason I put them on this list, it was very interesting. 2 of theirs were the guys who fit into a category that Brandon Marcello actually added to Bud Elliott's tweet of guys who transferred into a program in December, didn't hear their name enough, and then are trying to capitalize on that buzz again as they go back out. But 2 of their 4 are those guys, and then the other 2 are guys that you'd recognize, one of them being Jacoby Matthews, who's going to be very highly sought after in the portal as a safety, and has some big teams after him already. But A&M's kind of an interesting split between theirs. Also, Louisville's not on this list because only one player from Louisville has actually officially entered the portal at this point.
Remember the Brandon Marcello tweet, and then he came back and said, man, guys, I screwed this up. It's my fault. He owned it.
Now, Penny Boone's going to.
Well, he had mentioned the offensive lineman. Yeah.
But they're only one has officially done it yet, so maybe the Louisville collective is making a push now to keep some of those guys, but Louisville's not on the list. But A&M at 4 is an interesting one. And they've brought in a lot, and they're going to continue to try to bring in some more. But 4 spots opened up for A&M in the first window, and 2 of those were guys that they brought in December. Number 3, Miami at 5. This is, you mentioned Ja'Curry Brown earlier. Henry Parrish is one of these guys as well. Was their starting running back last year. It appears he's going back to Ole Miss where he started his career. That's kind of headed in that direction. Miami is just interesting in that there's 5 guys. The guy they thought was going to be the backup quarterback amongst them is interesting to me in that they're going to be probably more aggressive than they have in the past, given that they've got Cam Ward. So this feels to me like Miami is doing a bit of a clean out so they can go get the wide receiver and running back that they particularly need.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have anything to add to this.
It's fine.
I mean, Curry Brown, I mean, he wasn't going to start, so, I mean, I understand where he's coming from. It's kind of like we talked about earlier. I don't know why Uncle Luke was so adamant about his displeasure with that, but
maybe personal.
He's a super fan, and probably is personal, very personal.
He coaches
a lot of those
7-on-7
Miami
teams
guys,
and things like that.
Yeah, so he's got a friendship or a different type of relationship than just your typical fan, but he is a super fan. But yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of taking it in because it's so
Well, it's not really quantifiable.
Right,
you know,
yeah,
like
in some ways. But it is interesting to keep track of who's losing in order to gain, really, in the long term, or if they're losing because, like, there's a hole that needs to be plugged. And I think in Miami's case, it's good attrition. A&M's case, it's good attrition. Who'd you mention at first? Arkansas. You know, probably good attrition. So, yeah. There we are with that.
Yeah, and here's and look, I probably just could have done a segment on just these two because it's interesting to me because it's different in both ways. Number 2 is UCF. They've lost 6 players so far in the early window. One of them actually, Josh. I'm going to say his name wrong. Seliskar is going to A&M, but they've lost, well, maybe more than that now that I'm looking at this. So there's one more, but 6 or 7 guys, and most of them are veteran guys who were somewhere else and transferred in. One of them, Goldie Lawrence, fits in that category of he transferred in, didn't get the kind of playing time he wanted. He was at FSU before, and now he's transferring out. And then Timmy McClain trying to go find a place where he could start at quarterback. But UCF has 6, and I think part of this is them figuring out like, oh, well, you had some guys that just missed here, and that's going to be that. But it is strange to me that a team that I think has such an upward trajectory had so many departures on day one.
I think that's good. I just feel like maybe they need to clear a little bit out themselves. They're doing fine.
Yeah,
they are.
It's fine. Some of these are clear outs. It's weird, but that was a big number for UCF on day one. And of course, the biggest number so far by a long shot.
Asterisk next to this one because it's changing in any minute.
Yeah, because there were a couple more that happened today. Actually, 3 more since I did it. So right now, I think it's 13 is Colorado, who was at 10 this morning, already at 13, and this is a team that was completely built through the portal anyway, and they're going to have to go find 13 more guys. You've got Shadur and Shiloh out there trying to recruit players as well. I'm not sure that Deion's not going to have to revamp his team-building strategy in a hurry. I know he's trying to make it look legitimate at Colorado as fast as he can, but when you've got so many guys going in and out in 2 years, I don't know how you build any continuity and consistency.
Yeah, I don't either. I think if you're doing double digits in the transfer portal, that's probably not a good sign. That's too many guys that you're having to replace. Now, granted, with their needs at offensive line and in other spots, but particularly offensive line, I mean, you could see a big turnover coming, but that I don't think you can just do 10 year in and year out and think that you're probably operating at a very healthy level. Obviously, he's not totally happy with some of the bunch, and you see the messaging from his sons last night in that social media post about, this ain't last chance you, but if you're interested, contact us. We'll see how that works out, man. As we ramp up, it's going to be fun to start including them more in the actual conversation about the conference and what all that's going to look like. But Deion on year 2 is going to be must-see TV until it isn't. And it was for, about 3 weeks to a month last year, and then it was just sort of hit or miss after that. Obviously, a lot of eyes, a lot of pressure. But it does feel like something's just sort of out of whack with the whole handling of the roster. And if we're wrong, I'll eat those words, but it just seems like there's a bit too much attrition. And then again, maybe that's a good thing because maybe there were some guys thinking they were just going to come on board and it was going to be a TV show and it was going to be, fun and games. And clearly that's not what they're in need of if they want to win more games this season. So we'll see. Maybe it's a needed attitude adjustment, or maybe it's a sign that there is a leak in the USS Sanders.
I just saw this note, Craig. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it. The top 5 with the most that have left, and that changes by the end of the day. Mikel Harrison Pilot, who went to Temple High School, went to Houston, has entered the transfer portal. It's a local name. Just saw that note.
He was there, a year?
Yep. He and
he was a 4-star, I think, coming out of high school.
The young man from A&M has been so good. The kid from Temple that's a captain now.
Torian
York. They were teammates at Temple High School.
Well, I think TCU maybe was after him. Baylor was after him. I could see where Baylor
A&M was after him too.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where he would exactly fit right now, but I definitely think those schools could potentially come calling again. But yeah, that was not a very long stint at U of H. But you got a new coach, Willie Fritz, doing things his own way. Maybe that's a part of it. I don't know, but yeah, that'll be an interesting name to watch.
All right, thank you, Jack McKenzie. Emery Winters dialing up 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the local CW. We're back at it again tomorrow. Max Olson will be a part of the show. Chris Hummer will be a part of the show, and that means we'll talk more about whatever the latest news is when it comes to college football and also the transfer portal. For Paul Catalina, for Craig Smoak, for you, those who watch and listen or both, we appreciate you. 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 app. Please, if you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button when you do join us and spread the word. I'm David Smoak. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.